late.
One whole minute?
Yeah, I don't even have my earpiece in. I'm swapping screens out here. We should be live. I hope we're live. I don't know if we're live. Who knows? It's a deal every week. As a matter of fact, I tell you what, hold on for a second. Let me add a little more lighting to the mix. I don't even have all my lighting on.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is I had people text me, says, "Hey, are y'all going to be on tonight?" Says, "I don't see you yet." And I text them, I said, "Well, Rex is running late."
Oh, yes. Blame it on the tech guy. All right, I'll be right back.
Just throw you right under the bus.
Yeah, well, while you're throwing me under the bus, keep rambling for about 10 seconds.
All right. Well, I got it. I can handle that. Rambling is something that I can do. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I mean, we're just getting kicked off. We got a little house cleaning going on. Rex isn't quite ready. I don't know exactly what's up with him, but tonight we're going to have pretty good bit of stuff. We're going to give you a little bit of information about some term limits goings ons, and we got a special guest that's going to come on and talk a little local politics. And there was a council meeting last week. A lot of you may not have seen it, and I got to tell you, there was well, the words didn't get uttered, point of order, but I will say Phyllis, yeah, she was called upon, and y'all know what that means. And I see you got in the notes there, Rex, 2 guys on a sidewalk. I mean, did somebody trip and fall and hurt themselves on the sidewalk?
You know, that old saying about sidewalks and cracks and whatever. But anyway, yeah, there's actually something pretty interesting, and I'm trying to get my screens ready right now with Mr. Shane Cheatham's new podcast, and, well, I've forgotten his partner's name now in that endeavor. But anyway, they actually talked about something that is relevant to our show during their podcast that I thought was pretty interesting.
Right. Well, we have a few folks coming in. Looks like Judy Stewart is here, and Judy, actually, there's going to be a little bit of commentary kind of about the subject matter that you've had your hands in. We're going to follow up on our show from, golly, it seems like an eternity ago. What, a week and a half ago? Where we
something like that. I've lost. Whoops. Well, that's obviously not what we want to hear. But yeah, so I've lost track of time, and obviously I'm bumbling around the controls of the control panel tonight. But yeah, it seems like, let's see, so we skipped last week because that darn State of the Union got us, hence the name of the show.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and posted the last 2 interviews that we had done as standalone videos in its place. And what now? Well, here we are, and it's Tuesday, back to normal time, normal show, and flying by the seat of our pants.
Well, thank you all for being here. So do we want to go ahead and do our little countdown thing and then just jump right into it and get going?
Yeah, I think so. Let's go ahead and do that. We've got a guest coming up. Michael Ferris will be on, and lots of stuff to talk about. So let's do the countdown, the intro. Folks, y'all grab some popcorn or grab your favorite beverage and drink. Tag some friends, text some friends, all that kind of good stuff. We will be back in about 2.5 to 3 minutes.
Just, they feel helpless. They don't feel heard. They have nowhere to turn.
In all honesty, we try to lay low a little bit because of the fear that we would not be able to camp there.
And I titled it A Shot Across the Bow of the Good Old Boys.
Hello, everybody. I don't think I've ever done a video before on here, but yeah, I wanted to tell y'all what frustrates me a little bit about permits.
Cockroach of the week is, drumroll please, Allie Feaster Smith.
We can't be apathetic about what's going on in our state. We have to all pull up our bootstraps and get on top of this.
So you're right. There's a problem out there. I mean, and man, you can see it everywhere.
Well, look, we have allowed government to become our wherewithal to everything. Well, I've not heard my name in stable or Baton Rouge in stable in the same sentence in a long time.
You're about to be killed by a Zamboni, or you're gonna die in 5 minutes.
This Bossier Watch live broadcast is brought to you by David B. Womack for all your contracting and construction needs. The Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 23 years in the mortgage business. Pelican Training and Consulting is an IWTP customized training provider with over 25 years of success to show for it. Call them for a free consultation today. Pelican Training and Consulting matches employers with 50-plus employees with training dollars. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And the many supporters, donations, and folks sharing information and watching out for Bossier. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. And we have made it back. And I see that we have plenty of our normal watchers on here. Judy Stewart. Who else is in there? Charlie and Judy East. Val Baker is there. Good to see all of y'all this week. And hey, Val, sorry that we missed you guys last week. But as we said, the State of the Union was on, and it was kind of a slow local news week. And so we decided to sort of skip a week, sort of.
Well, I mean, look, it was a smart move on our part, because here's the deal. If we'd have went on live and took away audience from POTUS, they'd have just had us censored. They'd have cut our feed off.
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
Why do I feel confident about that?
Well, let's see. What did we... Oh, we determined we were going to do a little test tonight. What's that guy's name we were going to mention and see if we get cut off again? But let me say this first. We're going to show in a little bit, just in case the feed gets cut, I want to show you, the viewers anyway, how y'all can always find us, and we will be on one of the platforms in case this happens. If Facebook cuts off our feed, we're still streaming on YouTube, and, well, I need to check Twitter, but we should be on Twitter. If YouTube cuts us off, we're just going to keep rolling on Facebook and Twitter and whatever else, and if all else fails, we're going to talk through the show, record the show, and then post it later on somewhere. But we're on multiple platforms.
Now, some folks watching may be wondering, why are we talking about all this? Why are we saying this? Well, the last show that we were on, if you were watching, we were sitting, what, Rex? We had about 200 live viewers, and all of a sudden, we got cut.
Yeah, just clipped. And then we got some notices about, I can't remember what it was, adult content or something. Showing on the show?
Yeah, we posted or showed adult content. So,
yeah.
And there was the video shows, there's no such thing. There wasn't even any discussion of anything of the sort.
Yeah, and I'm no conspiracy theorist, but I would have to say that, maybe somebody, or maybe it was a group of somebodies, actually tried to report the show on Facebook to get us cut off.
Not some politician that didn't want us talking about them. Surely they wouldn't do something like that.
Surely they wouldn't resort to that. I mean, especially when the politicians have their own platform and soapbox, and well, they can start their own live show, or like we always say, they're
Oh,
welcome to come on our show.
yeah, they are. But you're talking about those platforms where they're deleting people's comments and censoring the comments on those platforms. And oh, wait a minute. I think that's something that's in the court system right now that,
Right.
has been ruled on and the like. Me and you were
Well,
talking about that today.
yeah, it's kind of a long, convoluted deal, but basically, the Trump administration, of all things, had deleted. Let me see if I'm telling the story right. It's been a while since I've looked into it, but they had deleted or removed some comments, and some people sued, and it went all the way up to SCOTUS. The Ninth Circuit had ruled that no, they couldn't delete those comments just because they disagreed with them. And so I need to go back and research that a little more and get some clarification on how it finally ended up. But let's just say it would be a good warning to politicians that they don't need to delete comments that they don't agree with or that are critical of them.
Well, just today we got an email, and I don't think I put it in our folder. No, I didn't put it in our folder. We got an email today of someone saying, "Hey, you ought to look at the mayor of Bossier City's social media pages and the city of Bossier, that there were comments or questions that were being edited or deleted. That they were censoring things." But Rex, also you said that possibly the possible motive or reason for our censorship was that some politician, we would suspect, sent in some false allegation against our show that we had said something sexual or whatever, which is a total lie. But there's another thing.
What's that?
Before we got cut, we articulated about a guest that's going to come on our show here in the near future.
Yes.
And that guest talks about a subject that automatically, when his name is mentioned, now we didn't say his name last show.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't say it when we were having this. But when his name is mentioned and the subject matter is mentioned, now he says it's guaranteed that they will censor your show and you're going to see it get cut. It's going to happen.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, is this like a Beetlejuice thing where do we have to say his name 3 times or we can just say it once?
Well, I don't think we're going to say his name, but I will say what the subject matter revolves around. The subject matter revolves around election integrity. Now, you and I have talked about that subject a bunch in the past.
Right.
And we didn't ever get cut.
Yeah, we didn't ever get cut. So I don't know. We're kind of rambling for a few minutes, but with all that said, just to let you folks know that we think somebody or multiple people reported the show on Facebook because YouTube didn't cut us. And I can report now that we are streaming live on Twitter tonight, full show for the first time. But Twitter didn't actually cut us that week either. I just sent the show over to my Smarter Geek page rather than the Bossier Watch page accidentally. So technically we didn't get cut by Twitter either. So I don't know, some kind of shenanigans going on.
Well, Rex, so when we started this, talking about this, you were going to kind of go into a little bit of detail on showing people that if you're like a Facebook watcher, because that seems to be where the primary problems are. So for the folks that are watching, it's been expressed that maybe we ought to take the time to show people that in the event the show gets cut, how you can go to the other platform and navigate getting to that, because some people have said they've experienced some problems.
Yeah, so give me just a second here, and let me see if I can switch screens around. It'll take me just a second here. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to hit, well, not that screen. Let's see. Let's go there and there. Okay. And that. Get back in the controls. All right. So if you go over to bossierwatch.org, just go to our website, bossierwatch.org or bossierwatch.com. It doesn't matter. Take you to the same place. In the upper right, or if you're coming in on mobile, you'll see the little menu hamburger icon is what it's called. But anyway, if you click social media, there's links to all of our current social media pages. Now, we're publishing live to Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, all concurrently right now. And then Rumble picks that up about, I don't know, it's several days. Sometimes it's a week when Rumble does its whole thing. Rumble picks up the feed from YouTube, so Rumble's not necessarily live. But I just want you to know that you can go there anytime if we fall off the face of the earth and you can't find us. Go to our website and look us up. You can also scroll down, and, well, of course, you can buy a coffee mug too. But if you scroll on down, you'll see the feed from our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page and our tweets. And those aren't necessarily in real time. But anyway, you can get all of our content, or most of it that we produce, on the website as far as social media, because I've got all that word embeds in the webpage.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, I think that about covers it.
Yeah. And if
So-
all else fails, you know, stop by Acadiana Mortgage. Of course, that's yours and Kara's business, or text us or whatever. You know,
We can
we'll
get you
it
hooked
figured
up and squared
out.
away.
Yeah, we'll get it figured out.
And Kaylee Larkin, I mean, look, Twitter, you're banned on Twitter. I mean, you sound like my wife banned on Facebook. I mean, that's funny. Anyway, inside joke. Okay,
Yeah.
so our last show, we talked about the animal control stuff. We had a
Yes.
guest. We had a guest on, and
Mhm.
you know that didn't really. That still went on even after our show a little bit, and there was some carryover after that. And I sent a link to your personal page to a Facebook post that was made, Rex.
You sent a link to my personal.
Oh, I'm catching you so off guard. I even
Yes, you
texted
are.
you. You're definitely
Wait,
slipping today.
I am slipping.
So-
Let's see.
See,
What?
folks watching the show, you've got to understand that we are amateur journalists. That's what we
We're
are.
very amateur.
And
All right,
we have sometimes we have to prove that.
where is this? When did you send me this link? I'll go back and find it. You sent it by text message? And by the way, folks, we have multiple ways that we receive information. There's Facebook Messenger, tweets. Well, we don't really get many of those yet. Text messages. I mean, we just get information from all sorts of ways. Email, Proton Mail, etc. So, did you send that? Did you send
Give
that
me
text message?
a second,
Yeah,
and here we go.
Bear with us, folks. We're just getting back into the swing of things here. Let's see. Kaylee Larkin says, permanent for life. Elon Musk could even save me. Are you saying you got banned from Twitter? Is that what you're saying, Kaylee? Ruth Pope Johnston says, thanks, Rex. Got it. Who needs a mug? If somebody needs a mug, just reach out to us or just go to the website. You can buy it right there. It'll direct ship to you. Let's see. And Mr. Crockett, you are correct. You can comment on Facebook. You can also comment on YouTube. We do see the comments on Facebook and YouTube, and I can add those into the live feed as we're going as well. You've seen us do that plenty of times. All right. Is this you need me to share that to you or share it out?
Yeah,
the screen out?
go ahead and share the screen.
All right. So let me click buttons here. Publish.
And actually, this isn't the one that I originally shared to you, but as it would turn out, apparently after, they let Miss Stewart go up there, or, they didn't let her go. I mean, just told her services were no longer needed. Remember it was reported to us that, they got the donations to feed the dogs and to and the animals and to treat them with the medicines, all those things. And they went and solicited donations and got a ton of stuff. Well, when they let her go, apparently they took it upon themselves to all the stuff that they had been gotten that the police jury hadn't paid for to take possession of all those things. And if I'm understanding the story correctly, in which I haven't had anybody tell me, I've been trying to read between the lines, they just took it upon themselves to take all the stuff and just go and donate it to Bossier City and give it away. And it wasn't theirs to give.
Well, okay. Let me play devil's advocate for a minute, though. And folks, y'all comment and get me on the straight and narrow here. But if it was donated, who was it donated to?
Well, it obviously wasn't.
You may not know. I'm just asking everybody.
I don't know, but I'm saying it wasn't the police jury. Did the police jury go out there and get it? The people that gave it away, did they go and donate? No.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm unclear of is the people that donated it, what entity or person or whatever did they actually donate it to? So if I had gone up there and donated some dog food, who was I donating it to? I think I said that grammatically correct.
Well, Judy is in the comments.
Okay, I see that. Miss Judy said me.
Right. So, on this other post, which was on the Animal Networking, Shreveport, Caddo, Bossier, surrounding areas, Susan Votal writes, now Judy has been told by the Bossier Parish Sheriff's Office they will have to check with the mayor and Bossier City PD. What? It is her property. The donor has told them it is her property. It's on TV when they did a news story that it's her property, yet they want donor to file charges. That's absolutely crazy. She has sought the advice of an attorney, so let's see what happens now. Meanwhile, parish animals have no help. No, the attorneys got plenty of help. The attorneys don't need any more help.
Yeah, without a doubt they don't. Okay, so this is getting, well, Judy says so sad, but yeah, this is getting sad and interesting, to say the least.
So, Judy, I would caution you upon saying anything that if you do have an attorney, and, you might not should post anything on here, but we would love to hear all of the whole background on this. Rex, even just today, Jeff Sadow had an article talking about the police jury and, basically breaking the law is what he said in his article. And, as blatant as it seems that they break the law, and have no care, it seems. I mean, stands to reason. There's no reason to expect that they wouldn't just take somebody's possessions that was donated to them that was for this. And, what are the limits? I mean, I don't see any limits at all.
That's true. I mean, as you well know, I was heavily involved with the Cypress District, and of course that's an ongoing drama and saga. But yeah, my dealings with the police jury as a whole is they just kind of make up the law as they see fit.
Well, I mean, and I would ask a question. A few shows back, we posted video of actually, the park director, it was alleged is on, property equipment of the park on his private property doing work. I wonder, has any police juror followed up on that? Surely they hear about our show because they're all rallying the troops against term limits. So I'm sure they heard about it. I mean, I'm wondering if they've even done anything.
Some sneaking suspicion tells me no, they haven't done anything about it because it's one of their own. It's that whole, what we launched the show on, that whole Good Old Boys network that, they take care of their own. And so I doubt that they have done, I have no confidence that the police jury has done anything about investigating the potential use of park equipment and assets, public equipment and assets, by a private individual for his own private personal gain.
Now, what could possibly be a reason that they would just turn a blind eye to something like that? What on earth? Why would they do that?
I don't know. It's almost like they want to. I hate to even speculate, but one possible reason would be maybe somebody has some information on them that they don't want to get out. I don't know. It's the strangest thing. It's almost like a TV drama.
Yeah, it's almost as if they know what would happen. They know something else. I mean,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we can't have term limits because you would enable the bureaucrats to be in charge.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to the term limits much more in depth. As a matter of fact, do we want to go ahead and dive off into that, or shall we have our guest first?
They have an animal control committee. Is that the library board? Is that the library board? I'm just wondering.
Well, I guess they could do like they do the library board and just self-appoint themselves to the animal control committee. And then
why not? There's no rules apply, right?
Yeah, they could self-appoint themselves to the, well, I don't know. They could be the animal control, well, they could be the animal control committee, and then they could appoint themselves as Judy Stewart, and then they take the donations, then they can turn them around and give them to the city. See, that's how that works. That would be their logic. Makes no sense, but it would be their logic.
Yeah, it does. Where are we going from here?
I don't know. I'm down a rabbit hole with the police jury, but we have more police jury stuff to talk about, as well as some more information on term limits. Oh, speaking of that Jeff Sadow article, aren't we going to plan on having Jeff on next week to discuss that in depth?
Yeah, so Jeff Sadow just, put out an article today, and I would highly recommend that, everyone go and read it, because it really is a hard-hitting and to the point, and he really ties it all together really good. And he outright calls the police jury out. And, we talked to him. It was a little late in the day, and he was willing to come in today, but there's just not going to be enough time in this show with our other guests to kind of squeeze that in. And we need to spend some time on that, because he kind of connects the dots and sews it together really well. And I think we're going to have him on the next show. And it probably is going to be a good follow-up to the interview we're going to have tonight and into the other subject matter that we're going to cover tonight.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm going to, just so everybody knows, I'm going to post a link to the article in the comments. I hope it comes through as a link. We'll post it on the Facebook page on Bossier Watch after the show. And so y'all will go ahead and be able to read that article and be up to speed when we have Jeff on for next week. And so that'll give you, pretty good, some pretty good context into what we're going to discuss.
Susan Votal, at Bossier Watch, we talk about a lot of things. Sometimes some people complain that we talk past them and they don't understand what we're talking about. But I'm going to go back. Susan Votal makes a good point. She says, but they are still subject to open meeting laws. You're right, Susan. But you have to understand about how these politicians work. And the police jury has perfected this. They have perfected this move. They are subject to open meeting laws. But they make everything happen by committee. And the reason they make everything happen by committee is because there's no video, there's no audio. There is a Cliff Notes written version of what they, said or did in that meeting. It's not the detail that you get in the regular meeting. So you could send a public information request, and you're going to get some vague outline. You're not going to get all of the, what sounds like there's a murder happening in my house.
Yeah.
Bo is not happy. So, but you're not going to get the detail, and that's by design. To Bossier City's credit, Bossier City doesn't do that. Bossier City doesn't have these committee meetings to bury things, in the committee meeting and then come to the regular meeting and just rubber stamp it.
True.
But the reason the police jury does it is so that you don't see it.
Yeah. Well, the same reason they still have sucky, piss poor audio on, at least they do a live feed of the meetings. I mean, I'll give them just a little bit of credit because legally they don't have to do that. No city government or no government entity in the state of Louisiana is required to do that, but at least they do a live feed. But the audio's been terrible for, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years since we've been listening to it, and that is by design also, because they had fixed it at one time, but then a couple of the police jurors were, said some things on a hot mic that maybe they shouldn't have said, and so now they're back to crappy audio too. It's anyway, I could go on and on about the police jury, and I'm sure I will get on my soapbox many more times about them.
And here's the problem, Rex. I mean, normally in the beginning of the show, you're like, "Hey, what's going on? What you been doing on your days off? Blah 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 blah," and all that. We kind of have that banner about. Well, I had an interesting kind of in between. Had occasion to go up into Oklahoma. I had to go and get a piece of equipment, right? And on that trip up, made a new friend, someone from Indiana. They hitched a ride with me, and I had never met him before, and we were having that discussion. And he was trying to feel me out. I was trying to feel him out. Is he, is he a leftist? Is he a conservative? Is he limited government? What is he exactly? And so we get into this discussion, and he's like, "Well, I think I'm conservative, and I'm like, "Well, okay, conservative is a catchphrase. Everybody's conservative now. It really comes down to whether you believe government should control more or not control more. Oh no, I don't think that. I think we should have decreased taxes and as little of government as possible." And I said, "Okay, well, you're not really a conservative. You are a limited government constitutional conservative." And just kind of looking at me crazy or whatever. And I said, "No," I said, "because here's the thing." I said, "You can be a moderate and be a conservative." And I said, "It goes from the federal government to our local government. If you believe in more government and no limits on government, today you could identify as a conservative." And
yeah, that's true.
In Bossier Parish, our elected officials, I hope to be proven wrong, but our elected officials, they want to be there forever. And they almost all say they're conservative. And the reason I say almost all, because I don't know about a couple of them, but they all say they're conservative, but they don't vote and act like conservatives.
Well, that's true. And like I've said many times on the show, nobody can really define a conservative. I mean, they all say they're conservative, but nobody can really define it. And speaking of that, our guest is sitting in the waiting room right now. We're a few minutes early, but what do you say we go ahead and bring him on? We can ask him that question. Does he consider himself a conservative? Well, how does he define a conservative?
I think great transition right on into it.
All right, let me see if I can get him activated here. Make sure everything's going to play nicely. Michael, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself because you're showing as muted. And let's bring you in live. Oops. There we go. Well, sideways. Okay.
There we go.
Gotcha. Perfect. Video looks good.
Well, as long as you're sideways to the right and not the left.
I am a little nervous about being on the show with you guys. I've watched you a lot, but this is my first swing at this pitch. So I'm excited, nervous, and all of the things that you would expect from somebody who's stepping into an area that they're unfamiliar with and doing it on live podcasting.
Well, I want to, Rex, let me jump in here. I want to say something. Nice to meet you, Michael Ferris. This is the first time I've ever actually talked to you.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I have some pages that are signed that I need to get to you.
And thank you for volunteering to do that.
Well, let's get into that for a second, because I don't think it's something that should be skipped. Myself being a short-term resident of Bossier, because I've only been here for a little over 10 years, so I'm still a new person on the block here, as you all know. When we started watching your show, my wife and I, we were told about it by some friends of ours, and I have been repeatedly pleased with the format of the show, with how you guys don't preach, you don't You don't lecture. What you do is you have conversations almost like you would expect to have at a diner with somebody. Just putting out opinions and thoughts. And most of the time I agree with you. Some of the times I don't. But what you have to say is always said in a manner that is respectful, and it's said in a manner which provokes thought, which is something that I appreciate, and which is something that I wish we had more of in our political arenas.
Wow, I think that's probably the nicest thing anybody's ever said about Duke and I in this show. That has to set a new record somewhere.
Yeah, I'm
Look,
about to fall out my chair here.
all right. So if we want to turn it a different direction, I can start talking about Duke's hat. Ooh, Dale Earnhardt, you killing me.
Are
But
you talking about junior or senior?
yes. So look, the purpose and why I asked if you would humor me to come on the show this evening is being a resident of District 1. You know, District 1 police jury had a restructuring, new lines drawn, that sort of thing. Mac Plummer was our police juror in the area that we had for a while until the lines were redrawn. And after the redistricting, we ended up with Mr. Bob Brotherton, of whom I have no ill will. I have not met him personally, but he has served Bossier Parish for a long time, and he's done a very good job. Perfect? No, but nobody has. Nobody can claim that. And if anybody does, history has shown that people would pick up rocks and start throwing them. But participating in our homeowners association, where I reside, and starting to try and solve problems that are in our neighborhood, that are prevalent in South Bossier along Sligo Road in the District 1 area, trying to help maintain property standards related to health hazards that it creates for neighbors and that sort of thing. I've slowly become aware that there's a need. I almost view this as Cincinnatus, if you will. I don't want to participate in this process until I leave this earth. I don't want it to be a lifelong calling. However, I do believe that if we as citizens who care about our homes, we care about our neighbors, our properties, our investments, where our children go to school, how the police interact with the public, how our tax dollars are managed, and how leadership decisions are made, not only from a city council perspective, but from a Bossier Parish Police Jury perspective. I think that we as Americans, as the species American, have to be willing to step forward and put ourselves in uncomfortable positions to where we're willing to take on some of this burden and affect it in some manner. I hope that makes sense. So that being said, my goal coming on your show tonight is to talk about a couple issues related to the police jury, which has been on all of our attention, whether it is direct focus or in the periphery, and to make a statement after that. So let's start with the Bossier Parish Public Library System. I really appreciated Mr. Sadow's article that he put out today. My wife and I both got it at the same time. Apparently, we're both subscribed to his articles when they're released. And immediately, my wife forwarded it to me, and I'm like, no, I'm already on it. I'm reading it right now. And when I was reading it, I was struck, as I typically am, by Mr. Sadow's forthrightness, which I appreciate. He doesn't dance around a whole lot of things, and he just throws the dart, lets it hit the board, which is also something that I appreciate. Mr. Sadow's categorizing Bossier Parish Police Jury members appointing themselves to positions that they have historically overseen. It causes me, as a resident of District 1, a lot of questions about the ethics related to that decision. I don't know how you position yourself to be in a appointed role where you're supposed to be supervising yourself. In any form of government, we should have another body, somebody else providing those checks and balances. That's not just on a federal government level, but it should be on a state level and on a parish level and on a city level. And I think that perhaps our police jury has made a mistake in appointing themselves to this position. Now, that being said, let's be fair about it too. Maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe they do want access to the Bossier Parish Library funds. Maybe there is something happening that the general public, which as of right now counts me, maybe there's something that we're not aware of. If that's the case, I would invite our police juror members to let us know what that is, because the plain view from people like Mr. Sadow from Bossier Watch, both of you, and the folks in our parish who are paying attention, it's not a good look. It looks like a failure of decision making. That's a little strong. I do realize that it's a little strong, but I have a concern about it, especially when it affects other people's jobs, when it affects the role that our public library system holds related to the education and information that is disseminated to people who pay the taxes for that to be in place. So, related to the library, I would like to see our police jury go back to having appointed members who are overseen by the police jury, as they should be, but who also have the freedom to do the job that they were put in place for. I think there's a conflict of interest related to putting yourself in a position that you're supposed to be overseeing. I don't understand it. I would like to have somebody on the police jury explain it to us. Is that fair?
Yeah, that sounds fair enough. And so let me ask you this as kind of a segue. I was just trying to jot down some questions. I mean, how do they go about putting that genie back in the bottle?
Wait a minute. Time out. Time out. The man just took a shot off of his coffee cup there. I want to see that again.
This is in no way gratuitous.
Wait a minute. I like it. I like it.
Oh, somebody who comes on the show well prepared.
I'm telling you. All right. See, I had a gotcha question already ready, and now I got to rethink it. Dang, Go ahead, Rex. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That was a good segue, and I totally forgot where I was. Good segue for what? I don't know. My question was, how do they go about putting that genie back in the bottle? I mean, they've basically appointed themselves the library board. They're, absconding, apparently, the animal control donations or the dog food or whatever it was. I mean, how do they put these genies back in the bottle and save face?
Okay, we're looking at three options, are we not? The first option is you continue what you're doing until apathy and a lack of action from our state officials allow you to get away with it. That's one. Number two, you walk back what you've done and you take the punch in the face for making a bad decision. If that's what it is, go ahead and own it. Nobody expects anybody in the police jury or on the city council or in the mayor's office or in any role on this planet to be perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. I think that's what's happened here. I don't know. Maybe they have information that I don't know. If they do, I'd like to know what it is. But number one, apathy lets it rock on. Number two, they have to walk it back and take the punch in the face and say, no, you're right. We overstepped. We've reread the rules by which we're supposed to operate under a police jury, and we have come to a new understanding as to what we are allowed to do and not, and we've made a mistake. So you correct it. The third option is that you have folks who are watching what's happening get personally involved. They decide that they don't like the way these decisions are being made. They don't appreciate that the rules of the game are being ignored or followed at convenience. And if that's the case, then individuals may decide, I need to run for public office so that I can affect change. So I look forward to seeing which one of those three is going to take place. Once upon a time, I was at a city council meeting for Bossier City, And I made a statement to the folks who were sitting up there on the city council saying that their chairs looked really comfortable and that they should be
I
cautious
remember
of that.
that. I remember
They
that.
need they need to be cautious of that because those chairs won't be there forever. And those chairs can get a little warm if your constituency, if the people who put you in those chairs start paying attention.
Very
Well,
true.
do you think? What do you think? What do you? How long should an elected official have a chair? Because right now, I mean, I'll tell you the word on the street for me is that all of the police jury members, not all of them. There may be a couple of them, but the majority of the police jury members, they don't want term limits. They don't believe in them. They think that there shouldn't be any limits. They should be able to sit up there till the day they die. I mean, and if I understand correctly, you've got one police jury member that's pushing 40 years of being in a seat up there. Is that acceptable? Do you think that's what the framers of this country had in mind, to have lifelong, seats in an elected body?
President Washington, when he refused to run for a third term as our first president, I think hit the nail on the head. By refusing to run again, he acknowledged how easy it would be to become entrenched in power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, that being said, is there a value? Let's talk about both sides of the coin because I think it's fair to do so. Are there advantages when you have somebody who is in any elected position, whether it is city, parish, state, or federal? When you have anybody who's in position for an extended period of time, do they get knowledgeable about the process? Absolutely. Do they develop relationships that they can use to forward or advance their constituents or the folks who voted for them's agenda? I think they could. I think they do. Do they maybe lose a little bit of sight as to why they were put in that office or what they desired to get them in that office in the first place? I think that's a real hazard. So let's talk about it. If we're looking at term limits, one thing you could say about term limits is the people who want the term limits are typically the party that's not in power, right? If I have a completely Democratic Congress and a complete Democrat executive branch, then I'm all for term limits because let's get an election out there as soon as possible and get this person cycled through and out so we can open the opportunity for somebody in an opposing party to take over. Look, I get that logic and I also appreciate that thought process. Let's look at the other side of it, though. And I had a gentleman. I'm not going to say his name on the show. I don't think that's appropriate. If he wants to own his comment, he will. But I had a gentleman who I respect and whose opinion I value. And at the South Bossier Business Luncheon, he and I started talking about term limits. And he asked me, what I felt about it, and I kind of let him know, I kind of think 3 is the max. I think by the time you have been in there 3 terms, you have done what you were elected to do, or you've been ineffectual in doing what you were hired to do, or you've forgotten what you were doing. So his response was, what happens when you serve 2 terms or 3 terms or 4 terms or 5 terms or whatever, and come election time, nobody runs against you? What does that mean when nobody runs against you? Isn't that like, and this isn't him, this is me paraphrasing, but isn't that like acclamation of the voters saying, you're doing a great job, you're doing exactly what we want you to do, so nobody's even going to run against you? Well, I'm sure in cases that's true. I'm sure that there are folks out there who think exactly that. We're comfortable with you. We know you. We like what you've been doing. Brother, keep on rocking and doing what you're supposed to do. Having said that, with the kind of voter turnout that we have, not just in Bossier Parish, nationwide, statewide, With the kind of voter turnout that happens, I believe that something which may be a little closer to the bullseye would be apathy. That it's not a problem until it walks in my door. I I am too worried about putting food on my table to worry about who's voting on what road gets what repair. There's a validity to that in that if I'm worried about my next meal or keeping my electricity on for my family, I really don't give a flying flip what's happening at the police jury or on the city council. I got bigger fish to fry. However, I think most of us, when we are in a position, when we're fortunate enough to be in a position that we can spend the extra time, that we can spend our thought processes and our money and our skills and talents, when somebody can take the time to, I don't know, make a podcast, when somebody can take the time to write an article like Mr. Sadow, when somebody can take the time to show up at a city council meeting and say something that may not be received well by those who are sitting in office, only to have them, I don't know, whisper on a hot mic that they wish they were ran over by a Zamboni, which was horrific. I can't believe that. That was ridiculous. When these kinds of things happen, I think we have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to step forward. I will
Well, I
tell
would.
you, go
Oh,
ahead.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Well, I was just going to interject for a second. I think sometimes, and I've heard this from people who have considered running for various offices before, that sometimes when you have a politician that's in there for 15, 20 years, even if that politician hasn't always been the best, they've got the name recognition. They've done enough for their constituents that the potential politician looks at it and says, "There's no way I can run against this guy because he's just been in there so long. How do you get him out? How do you pry him out of there?" And so it it sets it up where it's a deterrent to other people running when a politician has been in there that long, unless they just do something totally egregious. Would you agree with that?
Look,
Maybe.
statistically, incumbents win. Statistically, no matter what the race, the incumbent always has the edge. It's the challenger who's got to make his case. Is that fair? That being the case, the challenger has to have a certain set of thought processes that are going in their head. Juliana Parks displayed those thought processes. Chris Smith, Brian Hammonds running for this office, going against the entrenched. They've all had to have these kinds of thought processes, and I will tell you, I know that to be intimidating. Like you said, I mean, nobody's a professional politician. Everybody who runs for office the first time, you're amateur journalists. Everybody who runs for office, whatever that be, the first time, is an amateur politician. I think our country does better with amateur politicians. It is the professional politicians that get paid. Let me see if I can get my hand over in front of the screen. There it is. That get paid this much per year, but by the time their term is over, they're millionaires. Those are the ones that worry me. Those are the ones that are concerned. And it's something
Good
that I
point.
don't understand how that happens. Is because they wrote a book. Well, they sold 22,000 copies. Well, that's great, but that doesn't equal to $22 million. So where the hell did the money come from? I think we need to be holding our elected officials accountable on all levels. One of the ways that we hold elected officials accountable is like Cincinnatus's view. We make sure they know they're only here for a short term. This is not Politics should be not be a lifetime appointment. It should be it Preaching the word of God is a calling. Helping the underserved community is a calling. Helping those who are disabled, being a fireman, stepping up to be a police officer, signing your name on a blank check to serve in the military when you know that that might cost your life in some manner. That's a calling. Politics I don't know if you can call that a calling. I think that's more of a something that I can do for now, and it could very well turn toxic.
Oh,
So
that's true.
Well,
I'm all about term
I'm
limits.
I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to say this. I'm glad you're all about term limits. That I'm glad to hear that. I'm going to say that politics should be public service. Politicians and people who run for office, they should view it as public service, and it shouldn't be about their self-interest, but it should be about serving and then getting out of the way. That's that should be it. And you should be accepting of being challenged. I will tell you right now that you should be challenged, the same as Brotherton should be challenged. Every elected official should be challenged. We only improve. Iron sharpens iron. We only improve through debate. You articulated that earlier in your conversation. And where would we be? So, we got to throw you a little curveball here. So I'm going to throw you a little curveball.
Well, like you said, as iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. So throw it.
Well, here we go. So your district, I know your district. I feel like I know your district because I'm originally a Halton boy, and your opponent. I'm assuming your opponent, is that what we're talking about here? Because you haven't really said. Are we
So
talking about a race here?
you're right, and shame on me because I'm a big fan of ripping off the Band-Aid. So let's rip it off.
I feel like we're
Another
beating around the bush here.
Well, another reason why I did ask to come on the show is based on what I have seen and what I know. I think it's time that somebody run for the District 1 seat in the Bossier Parish Police Jury. I don't know if Mr. Brotherton is going to be running for re-election or if he is going to allow his term to expire. I haven't heard anything in public said by him regarding that. It is my understanding that there is at least one person that is interested in running for the police jury. I think he's a gentleman in his 30s. I encourage everyone who thinks that they can make things better to do so. I will tell you that I am officially going to be running for the District 1 seat. The motivators for me running for this seat are as stated earlier. And in addition, a big thing for me is everyone is talking about term limits. We've seen some of our local officials say they support term limits until they got the job, and then suddenly support term limits weren't such a big deal. Everybody wants to pass a law or an ordinance so that everybody will follow term limits. I don't think I need a law or an ordinance to tell me what I think is the right thing to do. So I'm going to be running for the District 1 seat. If the citizens of District 1 allow me the privilege to be their employee for a term, I won't be seeking reelection if I do a good job. I won't be seeking reelection past the third. I think that is the max where you have learned what you need to learn. You have learned the ins and outs, not only of the job, but how to use it to its best benefit and the time when it's time to walk away from it and say, I have done my service and it's time for me to go back to my home. Again, Cincinnatus. That's, as you can tell, he's a hero of mine.
Well, we've got
So-
plenty of comments feeding in. Hold on just a second, dudes. Our future mayor, Jeremy Gallman, says term limits are a must. Politicians are public servants, too. I just want to get a few of these in. Our good friend, the mysterious Mark Smith, is commenting away, but I'll remind Mark Smith, if he doesn't like the format, he should start his own and do video, too, and not be so mysterious. Anyway... So David Womack, he's a good friend of ours, asked, are you seeking support from your neighbors?
I am. I have started passing out cards. I've started talking to my friends in the district, around the district, folks that I do business with, neighbors, asking for their vote related to chasing the District 1 seat. And I've told them exactly why it is that I'm running. I've been...
Well, what is?
I've been pleasantly surprised by the reaction.
What is your why, Michael? I mean, that's to me in politics when somebody announces their candidacy, and I've said this before. I gave a speech about it. You know, actually, what is your why? Everybody has a why. What is your why? What is it that is motivating you to change the police jury? What is the main thing?
There's a few things. It's not one thing. Number one, everybody keeps tossing these words around, but then nothing happens. So the transparency issue, and we've seen this repeatedly. I want to get into office and make things more transparent so people understand. I don't ever see that really happen. Chris Smith is an example. I'm a big fan of Chris Smith's. Whether he's a fan of mine or not, I'm a fan of his. Brian Hammond's, same thing. They are willing to discuss in person and in public what happens, what they see, and what's going on. So I appreciate that more so when I see it so rarely. I'm also running for District 1 because I'm built that way. I love my neighbors. I love where I live. Unlike folks who have been raised here, and I'm not bashing that by any means. I'm a fan of it and I understand it. But when I hear folks like say that this is where they were born, this is where they raised, they married their high school sweetheart and all of these other things, and they're still in Bossier in their 50s and their 60s, I understand why they're still in Bossier after all this time. Me not having lived here my entire life, I have other areas to compare it to. And I will tell you right now that I'm a ridiculous fan of Bossier City and Bossier Parish. Anytime I have a criticism or a concern related to something that's happened in either one of those entities, it's not because I don't like where I live. It's because I'm passionately in love with where I live. And I'd like to see it get better. And I think there is things that we can do better. And I think that I can help get us there.
Well, speaking about passion and loving things, so in our previous, what was it, two shows ago or whatever, when we talked about the animal control problems at the police jury, I want you to comment a little bit on that. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? And, you know, it seems to me like the police jury's batting the animal control over to the city, and the city's batting it around because they're not getting paid the same number of fees. And meanwhile, people are having to, you know, not be able to take animals to the shelters and so on and so forth. So what's your stance or position or opinion or whatever you want to call it on the police jury's handling of the animal control problem? Because it's obviously a problem.
It is a problem. I've been reading the comments. I've been talking to people at Cafe USA and talking to people over at Neighbors, and these are conversations that people are having over tables. They're having from table to table, talking about these issues. And to help satisfy my own curiosity today, I actually called the Bossier Parish animal control number listed on the webpage. And I asked the lady who answered the phone, I said, hey, I got questions. And she was very polite. She's very nice. And she said, of course, how can I help you? And I said, are you accepting animals at this time? And she said, no, we are not accepting them because Bossier City is full. I said, okay, to make sure that I'm clear and that I understand. In Bossier Parish, if we have a dog, an animal that is being taken to you, you're refusing them at the moment because you have nowhere to send them. Is that what I'm hearing? And she said yes. And I said, thank you very much, and hung up the phone. There was no point in me having a debate with her or letting her know what my opinion was, because she's not in a position to affect change. She's just doing her job. And she did it very well with me on the phone. So if you look at it from a 60,000 foot perspective, what do the library and the dog shelters have in common, and the actions that we're seeing with them? It kind of strikes me that it's about money. Are we trying to save money from the police jury by abdicating an act that we've been doing or taking care of? I don't have privy information to what that thought process is, but I will tell you from the outside, it strikes me as though they're trying various ways to try and save money to help with the budget. If that's the case, I get that to a degree, but I also have concerns about the ripple effects of these kinds of decisions. And since we're talking on animal control, let's stay on that particular one, shall we? Just in our neighborhood, we are surrounded by coyotes everywhere. And as a matter of fact, I drove down Sligo Road to see a coyote at 9:05 in the morning, having his breakfast on somebody's calf that was laid out in the middle of their pasture. Circle of life, so to speak. But those coyotes also attack household pets. They can be vectors for disease. And when that bites a dog or a cat that is stray, and that animal then gets rabies, and then that animal has contact with somebody's child that's playing in the front yard or the backyard, that's when I start to have a problem with that kind of decision making. If we are doing these services for the parish, what we're really looking at is a reduction in service. A reduction in
So
service.
I don't want
So
to get you off your I don't want to get you off your thought process there, but you keyed on something that I was wanting to ask you earlier.
okay.
You're talking about right now a large part of your district, and I'm going to say you have a large swath of agricultural, cattle, and
Mhm.
farm ranch type stuff in that district. So,
Yes, sir.
you know, I'd not even considered, coyotes predating calves. So you've taken a little bit of an interest to make yourself. You're not a cattle farmer, right?
No, sir.
So,
But
are you saying to me you've educated yourself a little bit on the issues pertaining to, I guess you could say, the ranchers or the cattle people?
I am not a cattle person. I will tell you that I have raised, oh boy, here we go. Goats, pygmy goats, ducks, guineas, meat rabbits, chickens. I had 60 chickens at one time. Not cattle, because I could never afford that back then, but I do know that there is a significant, down in the Elm Grove area where historically, if you have an Grove address, you kind of feel like, even though you're a large swath of the District 1 area, that you have been maybe underserved, maybe attention is focused elsewhere. And that's a feeling that I understand. These types of actions by the police jury definitely affect the folks that are down there and trying to raise cattle to feed their family, who are raising cattle as a business, raising farm animals, and this escalates problems. So, am I saying that we need to go back to the way it was? I'm saying we need to look at that really hard. I would like to understand. I would like to understand, even if I'm not elected, I'd still like to understand exactly why it is that shelter was closed and that all of these donations and volunteers who are volunteering their time and their skills and their heart to go down there and help make this happen for these animals and make sure that they were treated humanely. I'd like to know why these folks were brushed aside. And if that was the decision, and apparently was, um, maybe it could have been handled better. Do you know what I mean? Rather than
Uh,
just being put out on some kind of press release, maybe somebody could have had a conversation with some folks, called a meeting, and shared concerns. I know that these meetings can be contentious, um, but contention is going to be a part of the job.
all right, so let me throw a kind of a softball question up to you, but I guess it could be kind of a curveball, depending. Ruth Pope Johnston says, "Are you a pet owner, pet enthusiast?"
Um, that is a great question, Miss Ruth. Thank you, ma'am. My wife and I have had several dogs. Our Hershey, who we lost 3 years ago, was a rescue. Right now, we have a dog named Jimmy, which is a Beagle Bagel mix, or Beagle Basset Hound mix, which they call a bagel, which I'd never heard of. But we got her from the Louisiana Rescue. Uh, we are very much pet people. With our dogs, we also have a bird named Charlie, who is a parrot and is rowdy. Um, I don't know that we're going to get a whole lot more than that. I think there's a limit as to what I can afford vet wise. But that being said, I have a big place in my heart for my little fur baby family members.
All right, and one more comment, just while we're still on the pet subject for a little bit. Our mysterious friend Mark Smith says, well, he's placing all the blame on the volunteers. He literally says they were placing the volunteers were placing animals. The volunteers complained. The shelter was shut down, so they're indirectly responsible. Has nothing to do with the budget. It's the volunteers' fault. So there you go, folks.
I don't think that's what I said. Is that what I said? I don't think that's what I
No,
said. Play the replay.
That's what mysterious Mark Smith is saying. He's our anonymous poster that.
Okay.
Anyway.
David Womack says he has an armadillo named Tex. That explains a lot to me. That explains a lot.
Please tell David that a safety man said that armadillos are known to carry leprosy, so don't be fooling with it.
Well, that's good to know. Mark Smith also asked, about your. All right, Mark, we're like giving you a lot of opportunity here. Mark Smith asked a question. I don't see it in the comments. It was in there, but I saw it. He asked about your business experience. I mean, I would think that's a relevant question. You're going to be a police juror. You're looking over millions and millions of dollars. Do you have any business experience? I mean, I think if somebody doesn't have business experience, that doesn't disqualify them from being a police juror or an elected official, but it's a valid question.
It is a valid question. Thank you, Mark. The reality for me is my wife and I both operate Pelican Training and Consulting, which is located in Bossier Parish. It is actually located inside Bossier city limits. My wife has been writing IWTP grants for 25, 27 years since they started the program in Louisiana, and finally opened her own business many years ago, and since then has been owner operator of it. I am a safety consultant, so while I do help her with the business, my job is to go out in the field. I perform safety audits, inspections. I do safety training. I consult with folks getting their written programs ready so that if they get inspected by OSHA, that they can pass that inspection and limit their liability exposure for getting their employees hurt, which I'm all about protecting. I told you I love people. Taking care of their employees and protecting their business at the same time. So our business has been located in South Bossier for several years now, and making those financial decisions, running off of a budget, maintaining a line of credit, tracking expenses, knowing how to get the best bang for our buck, being very judicious about how we spend money, being really thoughtful about it, and not doing emotional spending, but doing plan for the future spending so that we can provide a future for ourselves and create a more comfortable future for our kids, while at the same time trying to enrich the lives of the people who trust us with their business. So, Mark, I hope that answered your question.
Well, and in full disclosure, as you can see from the logo that's somewhere right up there, you and Julie have helped us out a little bit on the show, and obviously you have bought one of the cool coffee mugs, by the way. So in full disclosure, I want to let everybody know that should Bob Brotherton decide to run or run for re-election, or anybody else that decides to run for the office or the position, they're welcome to come on the show as well. So, we don't discriminate here.
So
look, you and Duke said a long time ago that you were encouraging people to step up and step out. And I have no problem in saying out loud that you started a spark in me. Me paying attention to what's happening in the city, in the parish, in the state, in the country. I have seen things happen that confused me, and sometimes that alarmed me, sometimes that I thought was great, and I would celebrate, the victory that was put forth there. But I never really considered myself, still don't, as a quote unquote politician. I just consider myself as somebody who really loves people and loves to take care of the folks that I live around, live next to, and that I get what it's like to try and make a life. And I think that the police jury and city council and anybody else who runs for office, like Dennis Bamberg stepping out there and running for, state house, I think all of us who consider this on a personal level, we take some risk putting ourselves out there. And I will tell you, it's slightly uncomfortable talking about myself and in this format to complete strangers who have fake photographs and flies on their picture. But the reality is that that's what it entails in order to be willing to put yourself out there to do what you think is right. That's what I'm doing, and I sincerely hope that other people will do the same.
Now, now I want to you said something right there, and as politics and the way it's the nature of the beast, there's always negative and there's positive, and I mean, look, I don't know enough about your race, and like I said, this is the first time I've ever actually conversed with you, and so there is already a whisper campaign or a little bit of a whisper campaign in this race that you're going to be in. And that
Okay.
whisper is this, that you were recruited to run by Dennis Bamberg and Shane Cheatham. Is that true or false?
False. False.
Good.
Have
Okay.
I let Shane and Dennis, who both have offices within an eighth of a mile from mine, have I let them know that I was considering it? Yes. Did I let Shane Cheatham know why I was considering it? Yes. That being said, I've also let a man know who was running an electrical company. I let a man know who was running a construction company. I let a lady know who was working at Brookshire's. I've been telling a lot of people why I was considering running. I didn't just wake up one morning and pop up and say, "Ta-da! Today's the day. I need to put on a sport coat and I want to be a politician." It didn't work that way. What I
Now I
have
I
done,
would point out that someone up there said your Sunday school coat, but I'm not splitting hairs here, but
well, they must have went to Sunday school someplace different than I did because there were no sport coats there, but there were a lot of work shirts. Um, I will tell you that what we are doing here, and everybody has their own venue to do it. You and Duke have found yours. Maybe Shane and his partner in crime on the sidewalk, two guys, one sidewalk. I think maybe they have found their venue. Chris Smith with his great job. Obviously, he's learning his way into the position like you do when you are an amateur politician. But he's growing into it, and it is encouraging as a citizen, as a business owner in South Bossier. It's encouraging to watch that growth happen. And you've seen me say in the show a few times myself that I could see Chris Smith being our next mayor. Man, I hope he runs, and I don't mean 10 years from now either. I think he'd be a great choice to help lead our city, north and south, rich and poor, black and white, men and women, Republican and Democrat, to where we're in a place where we can have the real conversations about issues that are affecting us and keep us out of the ditches.
Okay, so speaking of that, I've got a question from our good friend Andy Monica. Hadn't spoke to Andy in a while. He says, and so this is
wow.
From the police jury side of it, and maybe coming out of left field for you, but he says, let's put it up on the screen here. He says, Mr. Ferris, what is your take on the Cypress District and Robert Berry? I realize this is not your district, but what's your take on the whole Robert Berry and Cypress District situation? I know that could be a long-winded answer, but try to summarize it.
I know about Cypress District what I have seen on Bossier Watch. I know about Cypress District by what I have seen in various articles from Settle, Sadow, etc. So I'm not saying that I'm factually up to speed as to what's happening in Cyprus. I'll say this, again, from an outsider's view, that a lot of the things that have happened related to that property up there causes me real concerns about what is happening with taxpayer dollars, about the leadership there and how they are addressing concerns of the residents there and taxpayers related to how their governing body has been operating. I think how you speak to people is important. Most human beings follow something called responding in kind. I don't know if you've heard of that, but if you speak quietly to somebody on an elevator, the odds are that they will speak quietly back to you. If you see somebody in a parking lot and they're yelling at you and pointing their finger, you might be yelling back at them and pointing your finger back. And I think a lot of the woes related to Cypress District is how they are communicating what's going on. I don't think it has been transparent. I don't think it has been effective, and I think it is multiplying their own problems. They're their worst enemies.
Fair enough.
I hope they get it corrected.
Okay, let's see. Well, another softball question here. Our good friend, Mr. David Crockett says, "What is your campaign contact information?" So, since you're officially running, how can somebody reach out to you?
We are in the process right now, as we speak, of creating a web page for the police jury run, and a website and a Facebook page, all of which I'll be announcing here pretty quick. I have got some help from people who work in this area. I can tell you that if it was dependent on me to create a website, I might as well not run. I'd be printing flyers and running from door to door. That's my speed. So
That's
I'm
me
not
and you.
yeah, I'm not a technically savvy person. I'm gonna leave that to you, Rex. But these are all things. Thank you for bringing them up, and I wish I had them ready now, but they're not. But they're in process by people who know what they're doing, and I trust them to do what they do best.
Maybe for now, people can just reach out to you via Facebook Messenger or something like that for now, and once you get everything spun up, then you can, announce it and share it out and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. The another thing is that the election is not until October.
Right.
I announced a little early because I wanted everybody had to have an even playing field. I wanted them to know that this was not going to be a gimme election, that everybody's going to have to put forth some effort. I think they should put forth some effort if they want the work and they want the job and they're able to do the work. All that being said, I am looking forward to this process, even as I am a little nervous about it. I don't do this for a living. I don't ever want to do this for a living, but I am willing to step forward and try and do my part as best I can to try and help our district in Bossier Parish get to a place where we have reinstalled confidence, where we have fresh blood and ideas, where we are able to lean on the experience of our Tom Salzer, who's the president, and Juliana Parks, whom I mentioned earlier. We have some different ideas, and that's the way it's supposed to be. We have different ideas as how to approach it, which is also how it's supposed to be. And with all of these different ideas coming together, maybe we can make Bossier Parish a better place. Bossier Parish has changed, and District 1 has changed with the new writing of the lines and all that sort of stuff. It's not the district that it was before. And I think it's time for a change, whatever that change may be.
All right, so I've got one more question for you, and then we'll kind of wrap up this segment, and because we've got to move on to a couple of announcements. But
Yes, sir.
All right, so we've been tasked by one of our watchers out there to look into some information about. Let me see if I can word this the right way. An area up around Seven Pines Road and some zoning issues with the MPC, and that certain police jurors get advanced information about these zoning changes and the way things are built out in the area, and that they use that advanced information to their advantage. Now, this is completely hearsay at this point, and we don't have any information specifically about that yet. But what would you say about police jurors who potentially use knowledge of the things that they learn in meetings, which are typically closed door to the public, certainly not publicized? What do you have to say about that, or what are your thoughts are on that?
I don't have any information related to that either. I don't know that that's happening. I don't know that it's not. But I'll talk about me in that scenario if I can, because I think talking about me is safe ground, but I'll just use me as the example. If I was trusted by the people of District 1 to take over the role as police juror, right? And it's a trust. If I'm trusted to take over that role, and while I'm in that role, I use information that I hear from a meeting, from a side comment, to go buy property, right? To buy property, to invest in something, to personally enrich my bank account. Not only do I think that's unethical and immoral, but I think I should immediately be fired and, if possible, prosecuted. How dare you, as a public servant, get into that realm and then use the information that you learn while your constituency is trusting you to enrich your personal finances? I have that same problem with allegedly Nancy Pelosi and her husband, Paul Pelosi, and him taking information that he learned from his wife, who is in Congress, and using it to make investment decisions. I think that's unethical and should be illegal. If it's not, I think we should make it illegal. If you want to invest in property, stay off the police jury. Invest in your property. And when you get on the police jury, stop investing in property.
Fair enough.
It is to be in public office, there is a level of sacrifice. I can tell you, you do get paid on the police jury. It's not that impressive amount of money, and it shouldn't be a encouragement to anybody to join. I mean, it's not, nobody's getting rich off of this money. So what should be the guiding light, the deciding factor, whether you want to be on the police jury or the city council? It should be what you can do for your neighbors. That's what it should be. And if it becomes something that lines your pocket, it's time for you to be out of office.
Can't disagree with that at all. Okay. Anything
Amen
else
to
you
that.
want to say in closing, or Duke, you have any final questions or comments or anything?
I'm good. I'm good. I think I've been taking texts and asking the questions that were sent to me, and then he's taking all the questions on the. I would say to the audience. Do you have any last questions to hit Mr. Ferris with?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a good conversation so far. Let's see. Let me
Wait a
roll
minute.
back
I got
up.
one. I got one. Okay. So you're on board with term limits for the police jury.
Yes, sir.
And one more question.
Unequivocally.
Okay. Even if that ultimately, now I'm fixing to send a chill. I'm fixing to send a chill down the police jury's spine. And Patrick Jackson, I know you're watching, so you can just go on and start reading up here. But even if that led to a home rule charter commission,
Hmm.
did the screen freeze? I know you may not have been ready
Okay.
for that one, but
Okay.
just
Let's talk about it for real quick. I did mention earlier, I'm an amateur politician. I'm just getting my feet into this. As a matter of fact, I think the way I described it to Rex when I was asking if I could come on the show was that I was afraid I'd stepped in something I couldn't wipe off my shoe. So tell me what that commission is. Tell me what that does,
well,
because I need more information to answer that question.
as you know, police juries are governed by the Louisiana Constitution, right? Well,
Yes.
some parishes have elected to develop their own constitution or governing document that governs how they govern themselves, and they'll call that a home rule charter. They develop their own charter, and the police jury, as it stands right now, there's no term limits, in the Louisiana Constitution for a police jury. But
True.
if let's just say the Bossier Parish wanted term limits, and the only way they ended up being able to get term limits and to affect change, they might have to pursue a home rule charter, which would end up kind of getting rid of the police jury. So basically what I'm saying is would you, if you were a sitting police juror, would you be willing to say, you know what, I'll take the risk, I'll go home?
Boy, that was a quick response by Mark Smith. Hold on just a second. Said, would take a constitutional amendment in the state legislature. It'll never happen. Yeah, as if constitutional amendments.
He's pretty confident, ain't he?
Yeah, he is. Okay, sorry, Mark.
So let's play that mental game. In order to get done what they would want done for a limit on terms, they would have to remove themselves from oversight from the state. Is that what I heard? Is that what I heard?
Well,
Yeah,
Because
pretty much.
if that's what I
not
heard, I don't like it.
not complete oversight. Well,
Well,
now correct me if I'm wrong, Duke, and Colonel Crockett. I know you're watching. Is the Caddo Commission on a home rule charter?
I'm pretty confident that they are. They
Yeah.
have their own charter.
So it would operate similar to the Caddo Commission because Caddo doesn't have a police jury anymore. And so Mark
Well,
Smith, it's not impossible.
so a couple of things. Number one is I don't think that would be the only way. I do think that having citizens who have a problem with long-term folks who serve in office, if you have a problem with that, run, declare, put your name in the hat, be willing to come out in public and say what you believe and challenge whoever is in place. That methodology has worked fairly well, and I encourage it. Participation by citizenry can't be beaten. Having different people cycle through and bring their talents and skills is how we make everything better. That being said, let's say that because of apathy, that no one decides that they want to run for that position. Do we want to have somebody thrown out of the position by eliminating it so we can get rid of term limits? Is that what's best for Bossier? I would like to see how the Caddo Commission has been effective in Caddo since the change. Has it been better or has it been worse? If it's better, let's do it. If it's not better, maybe we need to check the brakes and not do it. The reality is, I think everything can start and be fixed if we simply begin at the ballot box.
Fair enough. All right, Duke. Any more questions?
That's all I got. I just wanted to prompt that little bit of dialogue there.
Mr. Ferris, any more commentary?
You are both scholars and gentlemen. I don't know that I'll win. I know that I'm going to do my best. Whoever wins, whether it be me or somebody else, as long as they are taking care of the folks of District 1 the way they deserve, then it's a win for everybody. I will be out in public. I will be passing out cards. I will have a website set up. I will have a Facebook page set up. And I will not be putting out signs next month. I think that's kind of nuts with the election not coming out until October. But I'll probably start putting signs out sometime August. And anybody out there who is interested, please hit us up when we get our webpage started and let me know if you'd be willing to allow us to put a sign up on your property. As I've done for other people when they were running for office, if you allow me to put a sign in your property, you won't have to go out there 3 days or 3 months later and tear it down. I'll come back and pick up the mess with my vehicle.
All
Well,
right.
David
Well,
Womack says, free chicken dinner at any point, question. Hey, David, look, you better check the police jury because I hear they're trying to ban chickens across the parish. They got some kind of ordinance they're trying to do to stop people from having, chickens, cows, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know.
Look,
I'm
I,
just
I
saying.
think David's been involved with cows so long that he's got 4 stomachs. That man, he thinks with his stomach. He thinks with his stomach, which is why I think we geehaw just fine.
Hey, we all got to eat.
all righty. Well, you're welcome back on anytime if you have any announcements or anything like that. And like I said earlier, and Duke and I have advocated on the show, all the rest of the politicians or potential politicians are welcome on the show, to be fair to everybody. But it's been an interesting interview and good to have you on.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I'll go back to just being a spectator and making comments in the peanut gallery. Thank you.
Sounds like a plan. See you later.
Thank you, sir. Well, I got a message, Rex, and someone who is in the know, and they said Home Rule Charter allows a government to do anything not inconsistent with state law or constitution. Yeah.
So they're not completely out from under the purview of state law, but...
Not completely, but you can get term limits in there because I can tell you the Bossier Parish Police Jury.
Oh, and I think I accidentally just hung up on Duke. Well, that was a mistake. I clicked the wrong one. Let me see if I can get my co-host back on the show. Hold on. Well, that was kind of rude of me, wasn't it?
Did you do that? You cut me?
I have to fess up to it. I accidentally cut you off.
Well, that's okay. But the Bossier Parish Police Jury is going to fight tooth and nail. Even I said it at the PEC meeting to our cockroach friend Doug Rimmer. You guys know you're just going to spend our tax dollars with some lobbyist to go and try to fight anything if it gets to the news. Like, well, how can you know that?
It's kind
Telepathy. What do
of
you think?
yeah, it's kind of obvious. Okay, so that's a pretty good. That interview I thought went pretty good. And folks, look, let me say this: if y'all come up with some more questions for Michael, just let us know, and we'll be glad to save them, and we'll be glad to have him back on and ask him. You know, if they're tough questions or not, we don't care.
I got to tell you, considering that's the first time I ever talked to the man, he seems like he has some gray matter up top. He does.
Yeah. You know, he was spouting off some pretty good ideals, and you know, a lot of the things that you and I stand for. And look, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to carry the water for him just because you know they've helped us out a little bit with the show covering the costs and all that. But at least his answers, you're right, are thoughtful, and he has spent apparently a lot of time considering this. And who was it that pointed out in the comments? Greg Bell, yeah. I'm impressed that Michael Ferris has a Bossier District 1 map over his left shoulder. Now, whether he put that up there for a prop or whether he put that up there, you know, for campaign purposes, definitely smart. Know your district.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, and I would say this too, you know, to Bob Brotherton, you know, look, I've known you my whole life. And if you want to come on the show and talk about the police jury and say why you should be reelected and whether you support or oppose term limits, your opponent has said he is in favor of term limits. You know, where do you stand on them? And I think we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but I think all politicians are going to get the opportunity to say where they stand on term limits. And
right.
Mark Smith, you know what? The legislature, and they can all stake their claim as to where they stand on term limits. You know what? And if they all say, hey, nothing we can do, we can't help, you know, we just represent y'all, the people, and if this is what a majority of you want, and we won't do what you want, I mean, whatever conclusion people draw from that, we'll just see how that turns out.
Yeah, and apparently we've got into mysterious Mark Smith's head because he says at least he'll have 50 supporters from y'all's show. And again, I would encourage you, Mark, start your own show. Do it with video. Don't be so mysterious and be a fly on the wall, but apparently we've gotten in your head again.
Well, again, he's only looking at one platform. I can't get that. So, but at least we know what platform he's watching on now.
Yeah,
see, you
exactly.
get something up.
We're narrowing it down. Okay. Shall we move into term limits? Shall we go over the city council? I say we move into term limits.
Well, I say we do as well, too. I would say that arguably, and Mark Smith, did you get to read, you know, Mr. Sadow's article today? I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that article. Anyway, and I think Sadow's article actually defines another reason why we need term limits and why they're justified. The argument that the police jury or police jurors make is that, you know, if you affect term limits, you enable the bureaucrats. I mean, are they talking about the bureaucrats like, you know, maybe the parish attorney or, you know, the Butch Fords? Are those the bureaucrats that you're talking about who are already in charge, arguably? And or are you talking about like Congress and Washington, D.C. as an example? I mean, you don't have term limits there. You've got people who have been up there greater than 50 years and the bureaucrats are in charge. I don't know how the lack of term limits has enabled the bureaucrats to be in charge up there. I can't wrap my head around the argument, Rex. I just can't get it.
Well, and I've made my position pretty clear many times before. The only argument that can be made is that, well, they need plenty of time, you know, as politicians to get in there and see how things go and make friends and, shake babies and kiss hands type thing. That's arguably also the problem with not having term limits. And what do you say we go ahead and we'll show off the website as well as make our other big announcement?
Yeah, so a lot of folks, y'all know, in a previous show, we reported that Rex and I both were volunteering, supporting, and a part of a group of local citizens that were, arguing for term limits and pushing for it. And Rex, to his credit, has taken the role of working on the digital side and putting all that together. And we are to the point of having the digital side ready to go, correct?
Yeah, we are. As a matter of fact, we've got the website up and rolling. It's a pretty simple site. I mean, term limits isn't really that complicated, although I'm sure we'll encounter some flack from our local politicians. But if you go to bossiertermlimits.com or bossiertermlimits.org, you'll come to the website. We've got a little bit of background information, on what this is about. And again, this is not just Duke and I. Duke and I were recruited. So this is, generally what we're calling a loose-knit coalition of concerned citizens and concerned voters of Bossier City and Bossier Parish. And there's three main simple things that we're asking folks to do. One, and the most important, is sign the digital petition for the Bossier Parish Police Jurors. So when you get to the website, if you click on that, you'll get the form here, and we're asking that you fill this out. You can also agree right here. I know it's kind of small on the screen, but you can agree right here to volunteer to help us if you want to help get signatures, put out information and all that sort of thing, physically help as best you can, then put a checkbox beside yes there, and we'll reach back out to you. But anyway, go ahead and fill out the rest of your name and information, and we do have a signature place down here, and go ahead and submit that information. We also encourage everybody to share this out, because the more the merrier. We need to get plenty of signatures to be able to do this. And this first thing that we're having people sign, it's not like if we get, 10,000 signatures on this digital one, that's going to enact term limits on the Bossier Parish Police Jury immediately. Okay? This is so that we can follow up and reach back out to you when the time comes to physically get your signature and fill out some information.
Now wait a minute.
Depending on kind of how we need to do it, how it plays out.
All right. Well, let me back up just a hair.
Yeah.
So what people need to understand, there are three different things happening here.
Right.
One, we're making a call for term limits for the Bossier Parish Police Jury. As you know, this all started with the Bossier Parish Republican Executive Committee. And, by a majority vote of the members present, with the exception of, imagine this, a police juror, wanted and was calling for term limits. And so we're calling for basically a resolution from people to say that, hey, we support term limits and we want term limits for the Bossier Parish Police Jury, but then also in Bossier City to call for term limits for the city council and the mayor. Now, on those propositions, there's a little bit more technicality there. You have to have a legal handwritten signature, and it's following state law in how that has to be acquired and how that's done. Now, we're not collecting that signature yet, but if you live in Bossier City, and that also makes you a person that if you supported term limits, you support them also for the police jury. So you would fill this form out, even if you're in Bossier City. And as Rex pointed out, there's a block to check, that if you wanted to volunteer. And so if you're in the city, you sign up for term limits here, and we will contact you if you live in the city to physically come to you and collect an original signature for the two propositions, that we're going to seek to get put on the ballot, for term limits for the council and the mayor's office. Right, Rex?
Correct. And so the way it kind of plays out, and I've got this listed on the website down here, or kind of spelled out a little bit about how the city council and the term limits for the mayor will work. But basically, we have to go by the Bossier City Code of Ordinances and get a referendum for that part of it on the city council and the mayoral term limits. We're going to need at least 33% of the total votes cast in the last mayoral election. So that was 8,226 votes cast. So that means we would need 33% of that. That would be 2,715 signatures. We need to get more than that, because the registrar of voters then will go through the signatures, make sure that they're all valid as part of the process. So we're trying to get far more than 2,700 signatures for what we need. Now, correct, Duke, that it's kind of a three-pronged approach with the city council, the mayoral term limits, and then dealing with the police jury. And so the process is going to be the mayoral and the city council term limits first, and then working on the Bossier Parish Police Jury.
Now, yes. So on the police jury thing, what everyone needs to understand is the signature and, you expressing your support for term limits and your desire for term limits for the police jury. What basically is happening there is that we are going to collect as many, people that support term limits for the police jury. We're going to submit those to your local legislators that represent Bossier to bring legislation to affect term limits for the Bossier Parish Police Jury. Mark Smith is probably correct that it would take a constitutional amendment, and it probably is a tall order. It probably is. But what I would say is that even if, we get all these signatures, and if your legislators turn their backs on the citizens who are calling for it, that's one thing. But then if they if they somehow or another get legislation wrote and get it up there to vote, you also put the other legislators on record as supporting or opposing term limits. And as well, at the same time, you're going to get to see your police jurors and what they do, whether they support it or whether they oppose it. How many folks watching, how many of you think it's okay for, your police jurors to be sitting up there for 30 to 40 years? Is that right? Is that what you want?
And
if it is, then okay.
Well, that's
Me
fine
and
too.
you are the minority.
Well, and like we've alluded to many times in this show, I mean, literally tonight, as well as in previous shows, many of the politicians seem to support term limits only when they're running during campaigns. But then amazingly, once they get elected, it's crickets. And look, I'll even say this. You and I have been on Tommy Chandler's case, not since day one, but since about day, I don't know, I would say maybe day 45, maybe day 60. We've been on his case. I look at this as a place where we could actually find some common ground with Tommy Chandler, because he ran on term limits for mayor.
Well, not just Tommy Chandler. I mean, there's a lot of politicians. I mean,
Sure.
they say one thing and then they get elected and they do another thing. And to get out front, I mean, look, Vince Maggio.
Yeah.
If Vince Maggio is going to run for mayor and he gets out front on this, I can tell you, one of the things I would say if I was his campaign manager and I was running, I would say, I don't just say I'm going to do something. I'm going to do it. And then I'd be out front on this.
Right.
Tommy said he was going to do it, but then he hadn't done anything. If I'm Vince, I mean, what does Tommy do if Vince does that?
That's an interesting scenario, because, I mean, it's no secret Tommy's probably going to run for re-election, and it's no secret either that Vince may run for the mayor's office.
What is Mark Smith talking about? So you want a Cheatham debacle every 2 terms? What does he mean? I don't get that.
That didn't have anything to do with term limits, but apparently we've gotten in his head again. That's always a positive side. So, in the short deal, what we want you to do is we've spun up, of course, a Facebook account. We've got a YouTube account going and all that. Of course, Facebook page that we just got the logos on. We're going to post this information to those. But we need you to go to bossiertermlimits.com, get all your friends to go there that are in Bossier City, or they don't even have to be in the city, be in the parish. Sign the police jury petition now. That's step number 1. And we will reach back out to you and let you know how to proceed with the city council, the mayoral, and then again, as we roll into the police jury term limits, we will reach back out to you with more specific information about how to affect that.
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, and again, we're not collecting the city signatures yet, but when you sign up for the police jury term limits, we will know you're in the city, and we will come to you and we will collect your signature when we start collecting the signatures for the city council referendums.
Right. Let's see.
Now, there's another point to that real quick. Hold that thought.
Right.
In addition to that, we're going to have locations across Bossier City that you can go to and you can go and sign up at as well.
Okay. Our good friend Robert Wright is commenting from over on the YouTube side. He says, when I run for office, people tell me they don't want term limits for me. I am running for the border. We'll see you down there. Grab some Taco Bell while you're at it, Robert. All right. So not too much more to say about that for now.
Okay, wait a minute. So Mark Smith, he explained. He says, so you'll have complete amateurs at each term limit. So, Mark Smith, I'm sure at some point in history, I've heard of newly elected officials convening committees of former elected officials, advisory committees and boards and things. I mean, can we not have advisory committees to newly elected officials to help guide them?
Yeah, I mean, let's reverse that and let's turn Mark Smith's comment on its head. So, are we never supposed to have any complete amateurs? So we're supposed to have professional politicians all the time. Literally, we would run out of them because they would die in office. Then what are you going to do, Mark? You have to get some more politicians elected to those positions, and most likely they're going to be amateurs unless they use the positions for stepping stones. But typically, if they're going to be elected city councilman, police juror, or mayor, then they're stepping into those positions probably first or second. But your comment literally makes zero logistical sense. At some point, you got to have some new politicians anyway. Try again.
You're basically saying, if you're against term limits, you're basically saying you shouldn't have elections. You should just people should be anointed.
I want to put up a comment here. Our good friend David Womack says we actually have that now, a bunch of amateurs running the show. Or they seem like complete amateurs, but that's a whole other point. Okay. So, any questions or any commentary about what y'all need to do for those of you watching the show? Comment and let us know. Again, say it one more time. Main thing is go to bossiertermlimits.com or .org. We'll post all this on the Facebook page for Bossier Watch. Scroll down to sign the police jury petition now. Go ahead and fill out that information. There's a digital signature you can sign with your mouse or with your pointer if you're on, or finger if you're on a phone. You can also just click over here and type it in and hit submit. And we will reach back out to you.
Yeah. So, and everyone watching, I mean, look, crowdsourcing, this is how it works. Share it out, to friends, ask those friends to share it out. And the more people that share it, the more people that send it around, the more this thing gets traction and the more it goes. I mean, ideally, we would like to collect, signatures as fast as possible. Although the city signature referendum signatures, we're going to start that this week. There will be an announcement forthcoming within days, and but you can again go here if you're in the city, sign up for the police jury one, and we will have you identified, and we will be getting with you as soon as we start collecting that first signature.
All right, Mr. Lowry. And I also want to point out that Andy Monica said he got an error when he posted it. I'll reach back out to you on Facebook after the show, Andy, because, it is the initial launch on it, and see what the error was, and we'll get that addressed. No big deal. Okay.
So there's a term limits thing. What was the other thing we were going to talk about tonight?
Oh, the chimpanzees at the Bossier City Council meeting. The zoo.
If you believe in the Democrat process, then you should agree that the person with the most votes should win. Well, the democratic process. Well, I believe in a republic. I don't know about this democracy thing. Is that what he's saying?
I don't know. Well, apparently we've got it in his head because being
for term limits
is similar to everybody they still have to vote for you one way or the other, Mark. We must have really got in his head now.
Oh yeah. I like that. We're in his head. That's good. All right. So what was the other thing? There was something else we were going to talk about. We were going to do the term
the city council, and I was just going to mention the Two Guys One Sidewalk podcast. As a matter of fact, they mentioned the term limits as well briefly, and let's take a look at that. So hold on a second. Let me see if I can switch screens. Get us back over here.
Oh yeah, we got to get to the city council meeting because it was a humdinger last week.
All right. Well, let's play. This won't take but literally like 30 seconds. So let me do this. Let me hit play. And we don't have system audio. Let me try this again.
Champion there. So just wanted to give a shout out to our local state champions from the Shreveport-Bossier area. We're going to talk about local stuff. We're going to talk about state stuff, national stuff. We thought this.
I may be at the wrong queue. So anyway, go check out the Two Guys One Sidewalk podcast. It's brand new. First episode was yesterday, I guess, which would have been the day after the Super Bowl. But Shane and his partner briefly talk about term limits there as well, and some other sports stuff and all that. But they've been fans of the show and watchers of our show, so go check them out.
Andy Monica, because we had a first president that had morals and integrity, and how far has politics fallen today? That's the why.
Yeah. Okay. City council last week. So let me see. We need to get over to. Let's see. Over to our show.
Restream.
Yeah, let me get that deal going.
Y'all are going to love this city council meeting because I'm going to tell you, we're going to go through it fast. In fact, Rex, what do you say, 1.5 speed so we can go through it fast?
That sounds good to me. Let me. I'm going to start the live review with you. Okay.
I think everybody can handle the 1.5 speed.
Yeah, I think so. All right. You want me to hit play or you got it?
Mark Smith, the gift that just keeps on giving. He says, no, the person that has lost before is whining because they can't win.
Huh?
Is he talking about me?
Now he's taking cheap pot shots, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think he is. But look, you're on here on our show, and I'm here.
Well, let's be honest, Mark. Then that would actually be twice.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be completely transparent. Okay. All right. We have definitely got in Mark's head. All right.
We're all in it. Love it.
Okay. So am I going to go to the 2030, the 2032 mark?
I got it. Okay. So the first up here, and this is the thing, at the end of the council meeting is the first part of the council meeting. We got to show you this because at the very end of the council meeting, that's when the bombs actually get dropped. And you got to see the first part to understand the last part. So we're going to go through it fast. And here we go. Bossier Arts Council discussion right here. And they're talking about the funding.
Chris Smith. Okay. Motion was Mr. Montgomery, Mrs. Williams, and second Mrs. Smith. Discussion.
Mr. Darby, we had talked, a while back about the participation of residents in Bossier City being on the board. Have you had a chance to discuss that or mull it over?
Yes, sir. I don't. Did we share that concern? I think we shared it with the attorney.
That has been communicated to the Arts Council. It's my understanding that they are.
Can everyone hear that?
To have some Bossier City
That's
residents
as loud as I can get it.
and to their staff. That's the last word that I got from them.
Do they have an opening?
That was my next question.
They didn't really reply. They said that they would begin an active search, is my understanding, to see if they could add some Bossier City residents. I don't know if that meant they had openings or if they're thinking about creating some new spots, changing their operating procedures, bylaws, things of that nature. But I will reach out to them again.
And do you think that's something we ought to?
Yeah, I mean, that was.
Once you pass this ordinance, it's done. I mean, there isn't any more negotiation. So I'm just.
Did you hear King David there?
Once so maybe summarize, yeah.
Once you pass this ordinance, it's done. There's no more negotiating. Well, I would point out that that's not historically correct. I mean, obviously, the council passed that we're going to do away with the roundabout at Shed Road, and that way you wouldn't have to close down the crossing at Shed Road. And guess what? We ended up putting the roundabout right back in there, and we closed down Shed Road. So
and aren't they supposed to put a stupid statue up there or something?
Oh,
is that the same roundabout?
Yeah. So the negotiation is over once you pass it by ordinance. I mean, that also begs the question, well then, so when you pass something by ordinance to fund and move forward on things, when you don't even have all of the I've lost my thought. I'm thinking Walter O'Bigby Carriageway, and I'm thinking about permits, and I'm thinking about all the crap that they moved. They went ahead and passed that crap, and they didn't have everything ready to go. But because they did it in the council meeting, hey, you're locked in. You can't go backwards after that, right?
Well, even, of course, they could just pass an ordinance to rescind a prior ordinance and all that, too. But the funny thing is, like you said, at the end of the meeting, when the girl comes sliding into home plate and addresses their questions what actually turns out to be the case. I would also like to say, I see the comments on the low audio. This is the audio straight from YouTube. It's always this low. Sometimes I've got time to boost the audio levels up. But the city council's audio it's better than the police jury's, but it's still exceedingly low, and I would argue that they do that on purpose too. We'll try to have better audio next time, but that's straight off their YouTube page.
Okay, so they're talking about the Arts Council, and they're talking about funding. Well, they end up deciding that, you know what, hey, they had some King David or Queen David had some questions, and they ended up agreeing to kind of postpone taking any action until they could get the answers resolved. And I'll play this part right here.
Okay. And if a representative was to appear before we end this meeting, we could clarify a lot of this too. This agenda is pretty long, so they may be watching and they could come and give us their input. But anyway, we have a motion in a second, and there's no.
So anyway, they kind of threw the challenge out there. They said, well, by the end of this meeting, somebody from the Arts Council was to show up, then, hey, you know what? We may be able to get back to it. So hold that thought, everybody. We're going to jump forward to the next issue. Now, this issue pertaining to trucks in the city and jake brakes. How many folks watching the show knows what jake brakes are?
And those big loud clacking sounds that trucks make as they're going through cities.
Yeah, you know how when the semi trucks come flying through and then blah, 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 you know, whatever. Well, it's a mechanical thing to allow for or to help with braking of trucks and all. And I got a pretty good bit of knowledge on it, but let's hear what they have to say and getting going on the meeting here about jake brakes.
Motion carries. Introduce an ordinance to amend Article 2 of Section 110.43 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Bossier City, operation of vehicles, to specifically regulate motor vehicle noise and establishing an area of prohibition of unmuffled compression brakes, engine brakes, or jake braking on Benton Road, Exhibit A, and providing penalties for violation thereof, and authorizing the city administration to apply to the Louisiana State Department of Transportation and Development to request permitting for the installation of regulatory signage on said state Louisiana highways. First reading.
So moved. Second.
Motion, Mr. Williams, second, Mr. Maggio. And discussion, council?
Yeah, Mr. President, I've got one question we stayed in here just on Benton Road. We have that problem in South Bossier as well. I mean, do we need to put all roads in the city limits of Bossier City, or add Highway 71, Barksdale Boulevard?
I agree with you, because the intersection right there by my house, you hear them coming off the intersection.
Yeah, so basically, Hammond's made a good point.
I told y'all it was a war between North Bossier and South Bossier. You'd think I'm kidding.
Yeah, but they didn't join forces here. So, the problem, I mean, you have some folks, and one person in particular that was more outspoken than a lot of other, to her credit, about this issue in North Bossier along Benton Road. And you've got a lot of increased truck traffic, and there's going to be a whole lot more increased truck traffic, especially when you get this lumber mill up here in Plain Dealing, right? So there's going to be a lot of trucks coming up and down Benton Road. They can't come any other route because the police jury has substandard bridges in the parish that are weight rated, and the parish has forced a lot of those onto that state highway, being, the Benton Road. And you're going to have more. But, particularly a lot of argument is being made about all of the sand trucks. Now, admittedly, Rex, this. A lot of people watching may not know this. I mean, I have an oil field service company, and I have trucks that go up and down Benton Road. So I'm very knowledgeable about the subject matter. And in fact, even I have complained, and we've shown it on this show before, I've complained about issues pertaining to some of the trucking up and down Benton Road in particular, and some of the problems. So fast forward to the testimony of one of the residents of Bossier, and this is kind of where, this is the point of it right here. And I may butcher her last name in my pronunciation, but Judy Maduka, she gets up and speaks. And here's what she had to say.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, President Darby, Councilman.
Hello.
Name and address.
Could you give me your name, please?
Yes, it's Judith Maduka, 3634 Green Acres Place in Bossier City. Okay. My townhouse is roughly 50 feet from Benton Road, which is a state highway. There is approximately 400 sand trucks a day passing north and south and have created unbearable noise. Imagine standing, outside your front door, and you cannot hear the laughter of your children. Is this what the MPC knew when they issued the conditional use permit to Performance Province? They were probably unaware that 400 trucks per day would harm the affected residents of Bossier City, who would lose sleep, lose use of their patios, and lose the ability to have a conversation outside their homes, and who now inhale massive amounts of diesel fuel. What brought us to this point? Regular traffic along Benton Road? No. A company called Performance Province. This company's application for a permit stated a 24/7 sand mining operation. It did not disclose 400 trucks making round trips from 4803 Benton Road to I-220 westbound 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, creating a diesel death trap. Environmental and traffic studies were not provided to me from the MPC under the Freedom of Information Act. Ironically, 5 of the 6 members who signed off on the permit are no longer at the MPC. You may say it's commerce or it's a state highway. So then why wasn't the state of Louisiana involved in the permitting? And why leave it to Bossier City to clean up the noise issues? Performance Province sand delivery system is conducted exclusively on Benton Road. Their delivery system is not regular use of Benton Road, but exclusive use for them, which violates Section 46-31 of the Bossier City Ordinance, which states, unnecessary noise. It shall be unlawful for any person, and in this case it is the owner of Performance Province, to make or continue to be made any loud, unreasonable, or unusual noise which disrupts, injures, or endangers the comfort, health, peace, or safety of others within the city limits. You may say this ordinance doesn't pertain to traffic. Again, this is not traffic. This is one company's delivery system endangering our health. Safety is included in the ordinance I just read. So let's talk about it. On May 11th, 2000.
All right, I'm going to stop right there and talk a little bit about what Ms. Maduka has said so far. And there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that I would say, she's right about and she's wrong about. I mean, as far as the permitting, it sounds like she's done her homework, and whether or not the state was consulted or not, and the police jury and the MPC. I mean, I'm pretty confident that had, say, the police jury or the MPC sought to refuse a company by moving forward and doing that, I mean, I'm pretty confident they would say they would have been sued and they would have lost by preventing someone, from moving forward there. Now, as far as, performance proppants, and I'm not defending performance proppants. I've been critical before on the show, but to say that Benton Road is their only route or what have you, that's not entirely accurate, because they have another plant up north of the Benton Road plant that they use the I-49 route. I can tell you that for a fact. And that may not have been what she was trying to say. But the problem and what it ends up getting to that she hasn't gotten to is arguably is the amount of sand that gets released and up and down Benton Road, as a result of the loading facility. And that should actually be probably where the argument is made, but it kind of devolves from there. And I'm going to let her keep on going. So here we go.
22 at 7:15 p.m., a southbound sand truck on Benton Road crossed the median onto northbound traffic and landed within 100 feet of a home in the Colony subdivision. It is Louisiana State Police report number 2022-00-14669. I've personally seen 3 sand trucks tipped over and 1 crushed cargo area of an SUV. How safe are our school buses, who now share the road with these Texas and Oklahoma drivers who illegally speed and use the left lanes? Why do they do this?
Okay. Couple of things there. She's talking about tipped over trucks. And when it comes to the sand, so for everybody watching, here's what I would tell you. There's 2 types of sand trucks. Now, you've seen the aluminum colored looking, like, with the 3 kind of like diamond drop things on the bottom or whatever, tanker looking trucks. Those are called pneumatic trailers. And then you've got all those boxes. Well, it's primarily the boxes that are tipping over. And what you need to understand is, and I don't know if Miss Judy here or Paducah realizes, if she knows or understands. She probably doesn't. A lot of people don't. But the boxes are primarily the ones that are flipping over. And the reason they're flipping over is because they're top heavy and it's a poor design. So why, is sand being hauled by this method? Why is it coming up and down the roads? And also, all the sand you're seeing up and down Benton Road is because those boxes, they leak out the bottoms, and because when they load them, they pile it up on the top, and they literally, it doesn't have a sealed lid. The load is not contained. You can see to the left of that picture there you just had, Rex, the back end of a pneumatic trailer, and you see over in the ditch, flipped over, there's a box trailer right there. And in the picture to the right with the Halliburton box, you see all the sand piled up on the top. When they load those things, they pull under a chute, and the loader just starts loading it, and they pile that up and on the tops of these boxes. They leave the load facility, they start going down the road, and all that sand gets blown off. And when you come down the road behind these cars or behind these trucks, your car is getting sandblasted with all this sand. It ends up along the roadways. And if you're like Miss Maduka, who is living right there 50 feet from the highway and all this sand's getting dispersed, you could be getting a silica dust exposure. It's possible. But the question is, you have to ask, is why would the frac sand company choose to use this method of transportation of a product to do these frac jobs, right?
Yeah, well, that, and why don't they, and I'll ask you, because you're way more knowledgeable on this, but why don't they have covers that they pull over the top of them to keep the sand, from blowing off at least as much?
Well, the pneumatic trailer has a manhole lid that secures down, and the load is secured. These Halliburton boxes, they have a lid, but it doesn't have a latch. It's not secured, and it's a flat surface. So on a pneumatic trailer, it's rounded, and when they load, if any sand gets on the outside of the hole where it's supposed to go in the box, it just rolls off the side, so you don't have none on the top. But on the boxes, it's a flat surface, and it just piles up there. So you say, well, then they should get up. It stands to reason. Well, they should just get up there and they should sweep it all off. They shouldn't, just go down the road and blow it off there. Well, here's the catch. The load facilities, because of OSHA law, that's like almost 14 feet, they have to have fall protection and they have to have all this. So the loadout facilities won't allow them to get on the top to sweep all the sand off. But yet they won't sweep it all off themselves. They'll overload the trailer and pile it up on the top, but they won't clean it off. The driver is put in the position of the only thing they can do is go down the road and blow it off. But that is, by law, an unsecured load. That complaint, I have personally made that complaint to the police jury, and they will go out and they will make a complaint about it. I mean, they'll go in and inspect trucks for a little while, and they'll fix it, and then it'll be right back to happening again. But you got to ask, if the frac companies know that this is a substandard design and that this is going to continue to happen frequently, why continue to do it? Why do it in the first place, right?
Yeah, that's a valid point, valid question.
Well, the why is because these boxes, they don't require a person or a driver to be skilled to do anything other than drive from point A to point B with that box. When you see those pneumatic trailers on the left, the driver who is operating the pneumatic trailer, he has to have some skills and a little bit of education to be able to operate a pneumatic trailer, because you can't just, there's no driving from point A to point B. So what happens is you have this box system. The reason that they wanted it was so that they could just get any driver that just has a CDL that can pull the thing up and down the road. They don't have to have any skill. They don't have to be very competent. You decrease the quality of the driver moving this up and down the road. So you've made a more dangerous mechanism for transport. So you see these things, these boxes are flipping up and down the road all the time, and you're basically transferring liability from, and cost by, one, you don't have to have a more competent and skilled operator of the pneumatic trailer. You can have a less desirable operator who will pull this box, and you can reduce the liability and you can place it out on the roadway, which ends up being all of our community and everybody.
And I would argue maybe decrease the cost. I mean, I don't know if they pay more skilled drivers differently than they pay less skilled drivers, or do they just pay them by the mile? I don't even know how they pay the drivers for the sand trucks. Do you?
Well, I will tell you, pneumatic rates are higher than what box rates are, and that's primarily because there's less competency and skill required, and there's a whole lot more people who can pull a box that doesn't require any skill than there is who can operate a pneumatic.
Let me ask you one more question too. So she mentioned about 400 trucks. I think she said like 400 a day. Maybe she's being a little, as somebody in the comments said, overly dramatic, but is there that much sand being moved?
I wouldn't be surprised if that's an accurate number.
Really?
But she made another point that's really important, and she said, did you catch the part where she talked about Texas and Oklahoma trucks? Did you catch that?
No, I wasn't listening to that.
Well, here's the thing. I am a well, I may be an exception here, but our company, we had to move our company to Louisiana. And why did we have to move? I mean, we had to move our company to Oklahoma. Why did we have to move our company to Oklahoma? Because of Louisiana and the insurance,
Yeah.
So you don't have many trucking companies out of Louisiana. They are, in fact, out of Texas and Oklahoma, because you don't have a lot of companies out of Louisiana that they have problems getting insurance. I mean, just it's a crappy market, and it goes back to the Gallon Seaball Ryan Gaddy debate with the PEC way back when, and the litigious nature of Louisiana, it all comes full circle. So what we end up having here is we have all these out-of-state companies that are coming in here working. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of them, they could care less about our community. And here's another point. Half the people pulling them boxes, I would argue, they might not even speak English. Might not even speak English, Rex. Trying to get the...
How do they get their CDL and not know English? I won't get off on the whole immigration debate. No, we won't get off on that tangent. But are the CDL tests in English?
Yeah, they are, and
Okay.
you're supposed to be able to. You're supposed to be able to articulate, read all the signs, and answer any questions if you were inspected by a DOT guy. But I can tell you, they're out there. Seen them.
That's a whole other debate and whole series of shows probably. So we'll gloss over that part for now.
Yeah. So she goes on, and Miss Paducah, she proposes. Bubba Don, he asks a question. He talks about overweight issues, and he was correct to point this out. I mean, you always have trucks and stuff that could get overloaded a little bit, but you're hardly going to find that really around here. Now, we know that the police jury, with their little commercial vehicle enforcement unit, targeted rig movers. I mean, and that's low hanging fruit. They're automatically going to be, 100, 200,000 pound load vehicles. I mean, they're automatically going to be heavy stuff. I mean, that, to me, that's kind of ridiculous, because you're going to get these guys that get something. But these regular trucks going up and down the road, you might get them over 500 or 1,000 pounds, but generally, 80,000 pounds, that's the max. And it's rare that the loadouts are going to load them over that. But she made a proposal, and Miss Maduka started talking about, a lot of companies only have a 6 a.m. start, and they don't work through the night. And I totally understand where she's coming from when she's living 50 foot from Benton Road with these guys with the Jake brakes, which absolutely I'm 100% in support of. But what I would say to that is, if you were to say, okay, you can only haul frac sand or whatever during the hours of 6 a.m. in the morning and 6 p.m. in the afternoon, that right there would effectively kill the oil field in Northwest Louisiana. You might as well shut it down and say, we're not drilling for oil. It's done. It's over with. That's it. Stick a fork in it. So,
okay. So maybe just a quick scenario as a truck driver. What is the reason for using the Jake brake?
The reason for using the Jake brake is to you lock the engine up mechanically to slow the vehicle down and to stop it. In some places, especially like out west, when you get on hill, we don't have hills and stuff around here. Jake brakes are a real big asset for a safety reason, because when you have these big trucks and you have to use your foot brake, your air brake or what have you, you actually can screw your brakes up on the truck to where you don't have any braking power. So you use these engine brakes to slow the truck down so that you don't use the brake with your foot, and it doesn't go away. You don't get them hot. You've seen these runaway truck ramps.
Right.
Well, that's what it's for. They'll get on these grades, they'll crystallize their brakes, and their truck will run away from them, and they have no brakes. A Jake brake will actually enable you to not. It's a safety thing. So, but do we need that safety thing here? No. And trucks using I'm not defending them using the Jake brakes with residential areas. They shouldn't. What I'm going to tell you is that, okay, look, I've worked in oil fields, West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana. I worked in all of those states in the oil field. And I would say that majority of all of those states within their city regions have jailbreak ordinances. Bossier City should have had a jailbreak ordinance for all of the streets years ago. We should have already had it. It should have already been in place. I'm dumbfounded that, it's taken Miss Maduka to get us moving here on this. It should have already happened. And a lot of the drivers, they're not from here. They don't care about our community. I'm sorry. There's a lot of them that are from here, and they do. And you're probably not going to have those guys. They're not going to use their jake brake. They're going to be considerate. But a lot of these guys, if they don't see the jake brake signs and they don't see any enforcement, they don't care. They're going to use them.
Unfortunate. Okay. So now that we've educated our Bossier watchers a little bit on truck driving, let's move on through the meeting.
All right. Walter O'Bigby, how could we not have a review of the Bossier City Council and there not be something regarding Walter O'Bigby? And Colonel Crockett, he got under Queen David's skin again. So let's hear it.
Introduce an ordinance to approve change order number 5 for the Walter O. Bigby Carriageway Phase 2 project with J.B. James Construction, LLC, for an increase in the amount of $18,119.25 using the 2018 LCDA Bond Fund. First reading.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Mr. President, Ben, can I ask you, where are we at as far as funding and completion? Or do we feel like we're getting close?
The project is progressing well. This is a bit of a reconciliation ongoing on about a $40 million project. Just taking care of some housekeeping with some, invoicing that comes in. We're ahead of schedule, ahead of the construction schedule. I don't know what this rain over the last couple of weeks has done with us, but as we report to y'all monthly, you see where we are with the schedule. Even with this change order, excluding the money that we change ordered in for the electrical, the lighting out there, excluding that, we're under J.B. James's original bid amount. So in my opinion, we're doing great.
I'm going to stop in there because he rambled quite a bit, but we're going to jump ahead to Colonel Crockett because that's where things get good. Here we go.
Yes, sir.
Somebody left their glasses. David Crockett, 653 Dumaine Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. This isn't a large change order, I know that, but I think generally when you talk to people in Bossier City, they'd like to know about how much the carriageway has cost when you combine beginning to end from Barksdale Boulevard all the way to the projected cost at the end of the project. I think those issues come up quite a bit. I don't know, does anybody in the council know how much we've even spent to date from Barksdale Boulevard to where we are today?
Mr. President, I'll ask again the relevance of dealing with this change order versus the entire project.
Well, I mean, this is on my time if I can go ahead and finish. Mr. President, I think the issue that I have with this is we continuously have change orders and we have unexpected costs throughout the project. And I think the community would like to know how much it's cost. I would ask again, and I hope by the final reading that somebody from the council could ask the accounting and finance department to come up with the total cost so the people in the city would know how much it costs. I think it is relevant, Mr. Montgomery. And I also, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to direct you directly.
Now, look. There is a call for Phyllis inbound shortly. I'm telling y'all, just watch. I mean, it's not a point of order, but he is calling on Phyllis quick. It's coming.
That's funny. That's really funny. Good job, Colonel Crockett.
Address you. But I do believe it's important for us to be able to find out. It's just one more change order, but we have unexpected costs throughout the process. So, but anyway, thank you, and I respectfully request that somebody provide that information by the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Crockett. Ben, you can address the status of the project at this date. It's not an overrun. The project is within budget, is it not?
Correct.
Okay. So we're not over budget.
Correct.
Okay, and that's what is important to note too. So we're going to have change orders because this is a massive project, so I understand that. But I think it's perceived sometimes we're over budget, and we're not over budget. We are within budget. We've had change orders time and time again, but we're not over budget. And of course, Mr. Crockett has a valid concern about the overall cost of the project. And I'm sure we're going to get that number in the near future. You could get something together if you like for the next meeting and bring the council up to speed, the public up to speed on the projected number that we are to date.
Some more specifics on that. This project goes back 2 decades.
It's true. It's
Pretty
such
big.
a massive project.
Right.
Big ass.
To Phyllis, how many times has it been presented what the actual costs were? I'm talking about originally with phase 1. Do you remember? How many times? If need
How
be,
many
we can go
times,
back and show
Phyllis?
the public
Come
how
on,
many
Phyllis.
times
Think
we have
quick.
presented change orders additional cost, total cost of phase one and going forward. I believe that that has been multiple times, and I don't know how many years ago that we started. Every month we show progress, what we spent, what we
Transparency,
got to
baby.
do. There's no way to predict a change order. I mean, like, for instance, on phase one, if I recall, there were water lines that we had no idea where they were. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So naturally, when you start digging, you can't quit the road project because you've run into obstacles that were unforeseen and unknown, correct?
Correct.
So you have to continue forward.
You can't quit when there's obstacles unforeseen, like Shed Road crossing. I mean, who knew
Just keep going,
there was
baby.
who knew there was a damn railroad right there? I mean,
When
no
it's
idea.
When it's OPM, other people's money at interest, just keep right on plowing ahead. Don't worry about it.
You're daggone right. I mean, I don't know why them trains just keep rolling down through there.
And for goodness sakes, never question or ask about the cost because, well, I mean, they've been so transparent about that multiples of times, right, Phyllis?
Yeah, Phyllis.
We have been very transparent through the
You hear that? Very transparent.
years of this project up until this date to let the public know exactly what we're spending, what it costs, what the change orders are. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
That is how we do business here. Thank you.
I didn't hear Phyllis say anything. Was she there?
I'm
Did
sure she
anybody hear
was there,
Phyllis?
but I don't think they apparently had not discussed that before the meeting because she was not prepared for that answer.
Yeah, apparently Phyllis was not playing ball. I mean, she was called upon, but she didn't get in it. Oh, good Lord. All right. So y'all remember at the beginning, we told you got to watch the first part of the Bossier Arts Council, the best part, to be able to see the ending. Well, all right, here we go. And the Bossier Arts Council, well, they brought the goods.
Okay, anyone else?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I think Ms. Pope may have heard your message on
Ms. Pope,
on the
she's been
broadcast,
watching,
so
huh? Okay.
I saw her sneak in here.
Would she entertain us just for about 5 minutes or less?
It's a hot seat. Be nice, okay?
I'm always nice.
I know.
And for the record, give your name, please.
Brittany Pope, address 1038 Babylon Road, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71106.
Okay. I'm going to make the assumption you heard the comments we made.
I did. We're in the process of hanging the next show, preparing for the public to come in this weekend, so we were listening. So I rushed over as soon as I could get off of that.
So would you like to tell us the plan going forward with citizens of Bossier being on your board?
Actually, there are already citizens of Bossier on our board. They have been for years.
Whoops.
For the record, Joshua Chambers, Cesar Marrero is also on our board. He's a Bossier resident.
Okay.
One of our newer board members is Lynn Laird.
Okay. So we have at least 3?
Yes.
Okay. So how did we misconstrue that we didn't have any representatives?
Now you hear that?
That's just great.
How did you know who misconstrued that why he's asking that? Because Queen David said we didn't have any. Why
Yeah.
he was wanting to hold up funding because we should have. I mean, it's a legitimate. I'll give Queen David credit. If we don't have Bossier people on the Bossier, Arts Council, it's a legitimate question. But how does that happen?
I would say it's because he didn't anticipate anybody from the Bossier Arts Council being at the meeting to clarify that. Maybe this caught him off guard that she actually showed up and went, well, we do have people from Bossier.
Well, it's funny because he didn't just give up right there. He tried it again, another angle, and again at another angle, and still at the end, they still didn't pass the money to give to these people. So just watch.
Not sure.
I mean, we're on the board.
How many total members? We currently have 11 members. And then we also have a city representative, Aaron Buchanan Mills.
Aaron.
Member Montgomery, are you satisfied? That number, is that something you knew or?
Well, I mean, when we talked, it was 0. I mean, that's the information that was provided to the city council. So, but I still believe it's a Bossier.
Now he said when we talked, the number was 0, and that's the number I provided to the council. Darby's pointing out to Queen David, what's the deal here?
Yeah.
You're the one that provided the numbers here, and she's sitting there saying those numbers ain't accurate. That's the way I heard that. Maybe I didn't hear it correctly.
No, I think you pretty much heard it correctly.
So, but the I'm just wondering how many people. Obviously, none of Queen David's friends are on the council. I mean, they're on the other ones that have insurance and stuff like that, like the Cypress District.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I wonder how many he's got on the Arts Council.
Well, apparently he's not writing insurance for the Arts Council.
Well, do they have insurance?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm guessing that they don't, which might
be the problem. Yeah,
might be the first question.
Right.
But look, I mean, look, he had more concerns, and let's listen to his next concern. He wasn't done. I mean, we got Bossier people on there, even though he didn't think that we did. Here we go.
Whether or not the person is accepted to be a board member. They do have to serve a period of time before they can move into an executive board member capacity.
So it would be my suggestion that your current board encourage, just as all boards across the country are being encouraged to diversify and be inclusive. So I would encourage that board, being that it's a Bossier City organization, encourage Bossier City and make quite possible.
Wow.
Now, he's calling for diversity on the Bossier Arts Council. Now, what do y'all think?
I just see some irony in that, and that's all I'm going to say.
Well, wait a minute. Well, now, wait a minute. What kind of diversity are you think he's talking about?
Well, I'm sure he's just talking about diversity in geographic location, geographic diversity.
Oh, you're cheating. You're cheating a little bit. Let's hear it.
Bossier Parish residents to participate.
We also have members that live in Bossier Parish. I just didn't state them because they're not in the city limits. They live in Halton.
Okay. Again,
So he's going to get her. I think we should also have Bossier Parish people. Oh, well, we have Bossier Parish people.
Well, we have
Y'all
people
just
in
asked
Halton.
about city people.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason I gave you those numbers. But yeah, we got Bossier
This
Parish
is just
people.
great.
So she shot him down again.
Wow.
So, let's see here. Well, this council meeting was almost. I mean, so he's shooting on the diversity thing, but maybe the best shot of all comes at the very end, and it comes from Councilman Chris Smith. And I had to go back, and we had time on this one since this happened the other week. But I went back and I looked, and I'm pretty confident I'm correct here, but somebody can point out where I'm wrong. And a lot of people may not have caught this. I did catch this, but let's listen to what Councilman Chris Smith asked Mayor Tahoe Tommy Chandler.
I think Mr. Smith has a comment today.
I was just going to ask, Mayor, either you or someone from your administration give us an update on the municipal complex. It's looking good. I was just going to see if you could tell us what more is going to be done in there. And
Ms. Carroll, the Civic Center. Well, I get Ms. Carroll and them, they're putting it all together. There's a bunch of things going on, Ben, Ms.
You better phone a friend.
It's really good afternoon, Council. It's really a building maintenance incentive. I think they're about finished. They just did the floors and painting. And I think that's about it. I think we might have a little bit of furniture, but the budget, I think, is, and it was really, speaking out, I think it was slotted for this year, but there was some money left over from last year.
I don't know, maybe.
Because they
What'd you
minded
say?
the budget
What was
well
the
for
question
2022. They
again?
were able to go ahead and get it in. So it was in the capital improvements. But they have, Steve Ford mainly is the one that was spearheading that. And
That's good. It does look a lot better, don't it?
are they putting new floors in the whole building or just?
Just going by what we got on the budget.
Okay.
right, just in the lobby areas and the hallways, not in each individual offices.
Oh, another one. Oh, Chief, come on.
Okay, wait a minute. Oh, Chief Zagoni's got to come in.
Oh, he's going to come in and save the day.
Now, why has the fire chief got to come? What's the fire chief got to do with building maintenance? What? Huh?
Well, they, put vehicles in the budget and do all sorts of things. Maybe he's involved in the renovations.
Well, I mean, I wonder if he's got something to do with animal control too. I'm dying to know here, but okay,
Don't you firemen guys rescue cats out of trees? Isn't that part of y'all's job description?
We've done a thing or two like that, but okay, look, let me step back here and unwrap a few things for you guys. So Chris Smith's original question is about some building maintenance going on at City Hall. And the reason that question, I kind of didn't know what he was talking about. I went back and looked through a bunch of agendas. I didn't see any ordinance or anything passed or discussed during the council meeting. I didn't see any of that. I didn't see the issue. It may have been somewhere. I think the point he was making was to get them on record about where the money was coming from. I think. Who's paying for that? Where it was coming from? Well, the Miss Carroll there, she articulated that some of the money came from a budget from the previous year and a budget from this year. Is mixing money from the previous year and this year, two different budgets. Well, here we go again with slush funds. I mean, if maintenance needs to be done, maintenance needs to be done, but isn't the council responsible for approving expenditures? And if you have money left over, shouldn't it be going back to the general fund to be redistributed?
Well, that's what you would think, but you know.
Now, they made a comment about Steve Ford, and what I will say is Steve Ford was a fireman who I worked with, and they said he's good at. I will tell you, he is good, and he when it comes to maintenance and comes to stuff, I mean, there's I mean, he's as good as they come on doing stuff like that. But I don't know that it's the proper role of the fire department to be and the fire chief to be articulate. Maybe he was just advocating for Steve Ford and the quality of Steve Ford. Maybe that was all that was about. But
maybe so. Then he just set the limits on people that can be in the building at one time or something.
Yeah, and it still begs the question whether himself and the police chief did in fact get the unapproved by the council $24,000 a year raises that is told to us by an anonymous source on Proton Mail. I mean, I still haven't heard. I know that one's being whispered around City Hall that the two chiefs, the police and the fire chief, got a $24,000 a year raise, but I hadn't seen it yet.
Oh, that's almost like Cypress District Robert Berry level raise.
And last I checked, the city council had to approve things like that. So it's almost as if we've got no checks and balances down there.
Interesting.
If that's accurate. So.
All right. And just to clarify for our good friend Robert Wright, who has now asked more than once, the audio speed is 1 in 32/64. Just making sure it's crystal clear to him.
All right. So we're going to wrap this show up. We have beat the horses to death.
Hey,
Bossier term limit.
We've gone almost 3 hours. I think it's not a record, but it's close to it.
3 hours, and people are still here watching. That's a good thing, I guess.
They must have just left their screens running and forgot their phones were going or something.
They didn't fell asleep. They are literally asleep, and they're going to wake up in the morning. Oh, it ended, and turn their phone off at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. Wow. All right, and we actually did cover all the topics. I'm putting little cute green check marks, doing the text stuff right there. Look at that. We covered all the topics. And hopefully we educated our Bossier watchers some on what's going on, as well as term limits and the Bossier Parish Police Jury race, a new candidate, apparently.
BossierTermLimits.com, folks. Hello, Barbara Murray. Glad you're watching. I know you find this entertaining on Bossier City. You're probably scratching your head like, my goodness, what are they doing down there? Hey, BossierTermLimits.com. Y'all share it out. Go on there, sign the petition, and, let's help pushing this thing out. Let's get it going. Let's get this done. I mean, look, it's not about that, we've got bad people in office, but it's just that we want better government. And, elected officials, if they're true public servants, they should be wanting to get on board with this.
That's right.
They shouldn't oppose this.
And Michael Ferris says, cockroach of the week, ? Well, Michael, you might be in the running for cockroach of the week.
We got to get
on the good or the bad side. It remains to be seen. All right, Mr. Lowry. Any other commentary or anything else we need to share with folks?
I think that's it. I think next Tuesday we have a guest. We're going to have Jeff Sadow at the start, and we may have a guest. Now, we said at the start of the show that we were going to, and we kind of started going down that road, that we're going to have a guest that was guaranteed to going to get our show cut. And we weren't going to say the name, but we were going to say the subject matter. And I may be screwing this totally up because we didn't do our test the way we said we were going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'll throw it.
All right.
If I throw it out here at the end, I mean, daggone. But anyway, we've got a guest coming up that says he's got the proof that our elections are fraudulent. That he's got the goods to prove it. And
Now,
that
sure enough, Louisiana elections?
in Louisiana. And that by virtue of putting him on our show, we'll get our show cut.
Well, that should be interesting, an interesting test to see if we are able to stay online. I'd also like to let everybody know, for those who are listening to the audio version of the podcast, that we will post a link to the Jeff Sadow article on the Facebook page. After the show, I'm going to get the podcast ready, and I'll post a link to that. And a couple of people have asked about that in the comments, so just want to make sure that we let everybody know that.
Yep. Thank you guys for watching, and Rex, good night, and good night to all of you folks watching.
Good night, everybody. We will see you again, same time, same place next week.